The moment the villainess opened her eyes, the male lead wanted to kill her, just because her luck was ridiculously good. Her transmigrated identity had just been exposed. Zhen Qiao's life hung by a thread. On a dark and windy night, the couple on the roof each harbored ulterior motives. The sinister male lead gave a wicked smile and, with a swoosh, seized her by the throat. As the pressure intensified, Zhen Qiao knew death was certain. At this crucial moment, unlike typical transmigrated villainesses, Zhen Qiao had only one thought. If you're not righteous, then neither am I. If I can't live, then you, a paper character from a novel, will die with me. Even as she was nearly choking, Zhen Qiao clung desperately to the male lead's collar. Under Jing Hao Ji's incredulous gaze, with a perfect freefall, the two plummeted from the roof. With a loud bang, Zhen Qiao miraculously escaped death, not because of her transmigration sheet, but because the male lead became her cushion. This was an unprecedentedly bizarre scene. Because of the transmigrated villainess, the male lead got offed right from the start. But he can't really be dead, right? Zhen Qiao panicked. The butler, who had rushed to the scene, quickly rescued the prince. The doctor's diagnosis was, the good news is His Highness is alive and will not die. The bad news is he suffered severe head trauma and may never wake up. Hearing this, Zhen Qiao, the princess consort, was ecstatic. Really, she blurted out, unable to contain herself. The butler's glare sent chills down her spine. Zhen Qiao forced herself into character. Embracing Jing Hao Gu, she began to weep. The butler continued to question her. Your Highness, what exactly happened to cause His Highness such grievous injuries? Zhen Qiao, of course, couldn't tell the truth. After a moment of contemplation, she turned around with a shy expression. Actually, it's a bit complicated. His Highness wanted to find some excitement, so he took me to the roof. It was that, playing pearl shaking. The butler understood perfectly, shocked beyond words. Heavens, His Highness, whom I've watched grow up, would do such an improper thing. To secure her position, Zhen Qiao volunteered to stay by the prince's side day and night. Seemingly devoted and touching, she actually spent the entire night praying that Jing Hao Gu would never wake up. Throughout the long night, Zhen Qiao cursed him while caressing his handsome face. Unexpectedly, her caressing actually woke him up. The moment Jing Hao Gu opened his eyes, he grabbed her hand tightly. Who are you? How dare you trespass in my military camp? Zhen Qiao was dumbfounded. Had Jing Hao Gu lost his memory? Losing his memory would be great. Transmigrated villainess paired with amnesiac male lead. Wouldn't the story's development be entirely up to her now? The amnesiac Jing Hao Gu didn't recognize the woman before him. He instinctively grabbed her neck. Choked for the second time, Zhen Qiao was furious inside, but outwardly, she launched into her dramatic act. Your Highness, don't you remember? Last night meeting Jing Hao Ji's confused gaze, Zhen Qiao asked again then, do you remember who you are? This time, Jing Hao didn't answer. Instead, he tightened his grip. Zhen Qiao felt a sharp pain. Jing Hao Gu spoke coldly. Just answer my question. Tell me, where is this place? Hearing her choked reply of the royal residence, Jing Hao Gu finally released his grip. Seeing him lost in thought, Zhen Qiao was certain his amnesia was genuine. So, she feigned Richet and cried, Your Highness is a heartless man. If you keep bullying me like this, I won't talk to you anymore. But Jing Hao Gu was inherently unsympathetic. He pushed her head away. So, you also belong to this residence. Of course, I belong to the residence, and even more so, to your Highness. Then, has the rebellion in the capital been quelled? Hearing this, Zhen Qiao paused. Your Highness, that was 5 years ago. Ying Hao's pupils suddenly contracted. He had lost 5 years of memories. The current situation is incredibly complicated. The general's manor is eyeing the prince's manor with ill intent. The fact that Zhen Qiao was planted in the prince's manor is proof of this. At this critical juncture, the 5 years Jing Hao Gu has lost will inadvertently become his Achilles heel. This also gives Zhen Qiao a glimmer of hope for survival. She must live on. She must sever ties with the general's manor as soon as possible, before her identity is exposed. While the male lead has amnesia, she must win him over, capture his heart. Thinking this, Zhang Chuyao turned around with a coy look. Your Highness, it's such a pity you don't remember. Last night, we were on the rooftop, making passionate love. It was so intense. Jinghao Ji's expression changed. What are you talking about? Zhang Chuyao wrapped her arms around him from behind, her movements alluring. Your Highness, could it be that you've forgotten everything about me just because of a fall? But I will never forget the times we pledged our love to each other, trimming bamboo branches by the bedside. And your Highness also said that even though I am a concubine, you would never take a principal wife. To save her life, Zhang Chuyao's acting skills exploded. Her words were incredibly moving, her tears evoking pity. The currently clueless and cunning prince was left speechless. After a long while, he recalled what the men in the military camp had said. If those young ladies become angry and refuse to relent, they actually just want you to pamper them. Just a single kiss on their little mouths, and they'll quiet down immediately, becoming as gentle as water. But how should one deal with this hot-blooded young man, a man of action with the mental age of 18? The moment Jing Haoge cupped her face in his hands, Zhang Chuyao did quiet down. Even though this was her first kiss, Zhang Chuyao stormed out of Jing Haoge's room, fuming. A short while later, the butler hurried over after hearing the news of the prince's awakening. And from him, Jing Haoge learned that the concubine had only been in the manor for a year. The prince and she were inseparable, undeniably in love. Despite this, Jing Haoge was still very suspicious. He went to his study. No one knew himself better than he did. If Zhang Chuyao was truly up to something, he would definitely find clues he'd left for himself here. Meanwhile, Zhang Chuyao was quite relieved that Jing Haoge had gone to the study, because she had already investigated and found that before his amnesia, Jing Haoge had gone to great lengths to guard against her. Not only did he put on an act in front of the servants, but he even deliberately wrote about their loving daily life in his diary. However, there was one secret Zhang Chuyao hadn't anticipated. She had expected Jing Haoge to go to the study to look through his diaries, but she hadn't expected him to also leave hidden compartments within those diaries. And within those compartments were, naturally, secrets only he knew. On the surface, they were a model couple, undeniably in love. But in reality, they were rivals in a game of deception. The princess consort seemed experienced and worldly. But in truth, even kissing was a first for her. The prince appeared to be a naive, lovesick fool, but scheming and calculating were already ingrained in his bones. Every word spoken between them was a probe. Every glance held suspicion. This is so good. I am obsessed. In the prince's eyes, the princess consort was a simple-minded little spy pretending to be clever. But even though he knew her motives were unclear, he deliberately kept her by his side, not exposing her. However, the prince thought he had the little fox all figured out, but he didn't know that Zhang Chuyao, who had transmigrated into this world, had no desire to participate in any schemes. Her pretense in front of the amnesiac male lead was merely a means to escape the prince's manor and break free from the general's manor's control. She wanted to become a free person, reversing her doomed fate as a cannon fodder character. But all of this hinged on her first finding the antidote to the poison the general's manor had used to control her. Zhang Chuyao knew she couldn't be hasty and needed to plan carefully. With this in mind, she headed towards Jing Haoge's bedroom. Upon reaching the door, she heard the old butler earnestly advising, "Your Highness, your wounds haven't healed yet. You absolutely must not bathe at this time." Hearing this, Zhang Chuyao knew his typical male lead ailment was acting up again. Not only was he a clean freak, but he also had OCD. Thinking this, Zhang Chuyao suggested, "Since the doctor said the wounds cannot touch water, how about I carefully wipe your highness down, avoiding the wounds?" The prince, who has half a phobia, naturally doesn't like to be touched easily. So, Zhang Chuyao deliberately emphasized, "Oh, I think I also saw when his highness fell last night. Your highness was covered in mud." Hearing this, Jing Haoge's body stiffened, and he instantly straightened his back. He felt itchy all over. Zhang Chuyao secretly rejoiced. It actually worked. Then, she raised her small hand and said, "Could it be that a louse got into your highness's clothes?" Jing Haoge couldn't maintain his composure any longer. Wang Bo quickly fetched some warm water. Zhang Chuyao turned her back, struggling to suppress her laughter. This decisive and efficient prince was probably only flustered and helpless at times like these. Having made her presence felt, Zhen Chuyao intended to leave, but Jing Haoge called her back. "My dear wife, didn't you say you would personally wash me? Why are you leaving again?" But Zhen Chuyao was just talking big. She didn't want to wash a smelly man. She then said coquettishly, "Your Highness, you've doted on me since our marriage a few days ago, even dressing me personally. Are you going to personally wash me now too?" She feigned a look of, "If you love me, don't make me lift a finger." Unexpectedly, Jing Haoge countered, "Enough, enough. I naturally understand my dear wife's hardship. Then, for the next few days, you should return to your family home to recuperate, lest you also contract my illness." Hearing the words, family home, Zhen Chuyao's resolve weakened. She immediately returned to Jing Haoge's side eagerly. "Your Highness, since my concubine is injured, I naturally have to attend to you." Jing Haoge inwardly cursed. Such flirtatious behavior. But on the surface, he smiled with feigned confusion. "Then I'll have to trouble my dear wife." However, when Zhen Chuyao actually started wiping him down, Jing Haoge started to regret it. Although he didn't understand why he, as a husband, would blush just from having his body wiped. Her teasing touches, one after another, could she be doing it on purpose? If he could still endure this, he wouldn't be a man. The prince with haphophobia wanted his princess consort to personally wash him. He appeared disgusted on the surface, but his body was very honest. Zhen Chuyao was still diligently wiping him down when suddenly her feet left the ground. The next moment, she fell into Jing Haoge's arms. Before she could react, the man's handsome face drew near, and he planted a kiss directly on her lips. A long time passed before Jing Haoge released her. Zhen Chuyao was still lying on his lap, her mind blank. The man's eyes were ambiguous. "What are you doing?" Jing Haoge smiled slyly. "I just felt that my dear wife wanted me to do that." Unexpectedly, his dear wife couldn't handle such talk. She abruptly sat up and pushed him away, fleeing out the door in a flash. What is going on in that guy's head? Zhen Chuyao thought that the prince, with only his 18-year-old memories, was full of youthful vigor and his mind filled with inappropriate thoughts. However, Jing Haoge may have lost his memory, but not his wisdom. After reading the secret notes, he knew his dear wife's deceitful nature like the back of his hand. Eliminating this little spy, Zhen Chuyao, wouldn't be difficult. But since she had already entered his dream, he might as well play along. If he could uproot the forces behind her, the general's manner, that would be even more satisfying. That night, to maintain the charade of their loving relationship, the troublesome Zhen Chuyao insisted on sharing a bed with Jing Haoge. But once she was actually in bed, she couldn't sleep at all. This was the first time she had slept with a living man. She tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep, disturbing Jing Haoge's sleep as well. He simply propped himself up to carefully observe. When his dear wife would finally settle down, "Apologies, Your Highness, did I disturb your sleep? Perhaps I should go back to my own room to sleep." Zhen Chuyao had just put one foot out of bed when Jing Haoge pulled her back in front of him. He stared at his wide-eyed, speechless dear wife until her face flushed crimson, then pulled her into his arms and held her close. "Since my dear wife says we are a loving couple, inseparable as glue, then even though I've lost my memory, I can't let you lose sleep because of the perceived difference. Be good, sleep." Zhen Chuyao muffled a response. She had lost this round again. She could only comfort herself. "Just endure it for the sake of the poison in my body." She didn't see the playful glint in the eyes of the man behind her. This little spy is quite easy to manipulate. After several nights of sharing a bed, the recovering Jing Haoge finally went to court. Zhen Chuyao thought she finally had a moment to breathe, but the general's manner, seizing the opportunity, immediately sent a stewardess to check on the second Mississippi. Having not received any intel from Zhen Chuyao for several days, the general's manner had grown suspicious. Zhen Chuyao had to explain. She claimed that for the past few days, the prince had been suspicious of her identity, making it difficult to slip away. But the stewardess hadn't come to listen to explanations. She pulled something from her sleeve and ordered, "If it's absolutely necessary, use this." Zhen Chuyao accepted a small paper packet. This is to ensure things go smoothly. "If the second miss wishes to receive the monthly antidote, please refrain from having any unnecessary thoughts." The stewardess from the general's manor left her threat and departed. Zhen Chuyao stared blankly at the packet. By evening, her mind was filled with the ambiguous encounters she'd had with Jing Haoge these past few days. As a pure and innocent young woman, she simply couldn't handle any further intimacy. It had only been a few days since she'd arrived, and he had already taken every advantage he could. He still wanted. Just as Zhen Chuyao was lost in thought, Jing Haoji's voice suddenly reached her ears. "My beloved consort, what is that in your hand? Even though we are husband and wife, my consort still needs to resort to using love potions on me. What a coincidence! I've caught you red-handed. My beloved consort seems to cherish this item. What exactly is it? This is a tonic. Your Highness has no need for it. So, it's blissful union powder then." The words blissful union powder tumbled from Jing Haoji's mouth. Mortified, Zhen Chuyao wished she could disappear into the ground. What was wrong with the people from the general's manor? Sending something like this, and even writing the name on it. Jing Haogu chuckled. "It seems that during my injury these past few days, I have neglected my beloved consort. But if my consort desires intimacy, you need only speak. Why resort to such measures?" Zhen Chuyao wanted to explain, but remembering her role as a spy sent by the general's manor, she couldn't find the words. Lost in thought, Jing Haoji's lips landed on the tip of her nose. His voice, low and gentle, carried a hint of indulgence. My body has not yet recovered. Zhen Chuyao inwardly cursed Jing Haogu to owe her for a lifetime. She didn't want to actually offer up both her body and her loyalty. Jing Haogu rose gracefully and walked into the room. But a sudden feeling of unreality washed over him. Was his action just now also a performance for her benefit? Suddenly, a whooshing sound. Someone attacked. Jing Haogu reflexively pulled Zhen Chuyao into his arms, deflecting the incoming dart with his sword. Zhen Chuyao snapped back to reality. Assassins. Jing Haogu shielded her and ordered her to get inside. But Zhen Chuyao was frozen in place, unable to move. She remembered. This was a key plot point in the original story. Because of the original Zhen Chuyao's hindrance, the injured male lead, while pursuing the assassins, encountered the cross-dressing female lead, thus beginning their love-hate relationship. Frozen in place, the original Zhen Chuyao had indeed hindered Jing Haogu. However, unlike the original plot, her legs gave way and she collapsed uncontrollably. Coincidentally, another dart flew towards them, and she ended up blocking it for Jing Haogu, falling into his arms. The next moment, Jing Haogu swiftly retaliated, pinning the assassin who had injured his beloved consort to a pillar. At the same time, the manor guards rushed in and subdued the remaining assassins. With a grim expression, Jing Haogu carried Zhen Chuyao inside, leaving behind a single, harsh command: leave no one alive. After the physician's treatment, the princess consort's wounds were finally tended to. Lying on the bed, bandaged, Zhen Chuyao had gritted her teeth and endured the pain without a sound. At this moment, she looked both pitiful and fragile. Jing Haogu furrowed his brow, puzzled. If she was acting, why would she risk her life like this? Suddenly, a soft, "Your Highness," pulled him from his thoughts. Zhen Chuyao had pulled up the blanket and silently turned over. Jing Haoji's gaze followed her movements intently. The physician turned his head. "Does it hurt?" And no, it doesn't hurt. A hiss of pain immediately followed. He turned back sharply, scowling. "Rest properly. Why are you getting up?" A muffled sob followed. He glared at her again. "Rest and recover. Why are you getting up?" Zhen Chuyao was taken aback. Concubine is merely worried about the safety of the manor. To think someone would dare to attempt to assassinate His Highness in broad daylight. Zhen Chuyao trailed off. Jing Haoji's demeanor suddenly turned cold. Beloved consort thinks there are suspicious individuals within the manor. Zhen Chuyao then realized she had spoken out of turn. "Your Highness, are you suspecting me?" Hearing this, Jing Haogu turned and stared at her for a moment, a dark glint in his eyes. Finally, he shook his head. "Beloved consort should focus on recovering from your injuries. Ever since the princess consort took a sword blow for the prince, he'd been doting on her excessively. He was practically spoon-feeding her. He was the very picture of attentiveness. Even when the princess consort needed to use the restroom, the prince would personally carry her there. News of the Mu prince, now having a deeply favored consort, quickly spread throughout the entire capital. Everyone believed the Mu prince to be a gentle and doting husband. But only Zhen Chuyao within the manor knew the truth. Jing Haogu was only doing this for the general's manor to see. No matter how benevolent he appeared on the surface, he was a ruthless man at heart. Just as Zhen Chuyao had predicted, after several days of failing to find any trace of the assassin, Jing Haogu grew even more suspicious of Zhen Chuyao, who had come from the general's manor. He even deliberately tested her while drinking tea. Beloved consort, how do you think this king should continue investigating the assassination attempt? Zheng Shuyao froze for a second, then immediately feigned ignorance, smiling. This humble one thinks that if you investigate everyone in the court who has a grudge against your highness, you'll surely find the culprit. Yinghao Yifuklid. Is it truly that simple? His seemingly casual words filled Zheng Shuyao with panic. He really did suspect her. So, in the next moment, Zheng Shuyao decided to take the initiative. With your highness's status, it shouldn't be difficult to find out who did it. You specifically asked this concubine. Perhaps you already suspect me? The words hung in the air. Seeing that Jing Haogu remained silent, Zheng Shuyao's heart sank. She let 2 tears roll down her cheeks, feigning resignation. If your highness has reservations about this concubine, it would be better to simply send me away from the manor to save you the trouble. Tears streamed down her face. Each tear that fell seemed to land directly on Jing Haoji's heart. The most skilled hunters often disguise themselves as prey. Watching his beloved consort's tearful display, Jing Haogu stood up, irritated. Why are you crying over a simple question? Well, have I ever treated you coldly? Jing Haogu was exasperated. This woman cried so easily. The general's manner truly had poor judgment. She didn't seem like someone capable of being a spy at all. At this moment, Jing Haogu suddenly didn't know who to be angry with. All right, stop crying. You've ruined your makeup. Their standoff continued until evening. Only then did Zheng Shuyao, with a heart full of fear, see Jing Haogu off. The moment the door closed, the expression on her face crumbled. She knew she was done for. This time, he truly suspected her. Now was not the time to rest. She had to consolidate her position. An hour later, Zheng Shuyao, carrying a plate of pastry she had made herself, went to visit the prince's study. However, she was stopped at the door by the guards. Hearing the commotion outside, Jing Haogu stepped out of the study. Beloved consort, what is the matter? Zheng Shuyao immediately put on a charming and slightly spoiled act. The picture of a woman pampered to no end. I brought your highness some pastries I made myself, but your guards wouldn't let me in. I'm so angry. Jing Haogu slowly took the plate from Zheng Shuyao's hands and instructed the guards to take it inside. Then, he took her hand and gently kissed it. Beloved consort, there was no need to go to such trouble. If you hurt your hands, wouldn't this king be heartbroken? Zheng Shuyao could hardly withstand such flirtation. She had to admit, this man truly knew how to charm. Watching her blush, Jing Haogu hid a smile and led her into the study. As she followed him, Zheng Shuyao cleverly leaned against his arm, appearing utterly innocent. Your highness is so kind. That night, she slept soundly. The next day, when Zheng Shuyao awoke, Jing Haogu was already gone. She had just finished dressing when someone from the general's manor arrived. Before she even reached the front hall, the visitor's arrogant and sharp voice could already be heard. This visit was clearly not a friendly one. And this time, it was actually Zhang Hanyan, the legitimate daughter of the general's manor, who arrived. She is also the female lead in the original story. Zheng Shuyao, the secondary female lead, confronted the original female lead in the front hall. The male lead, Jing Haogu, was hiding behind a screen, eavesdropping. He listened to the 2 women bickering over him from the corner. Jing Haoji's lips curled up in amusement, but his joy was short-lived. He saw Zhang Hanyan pull out a sealed letter. She tossed it to Zheng Shuyao. Jing Haoji's expression changed drastically. Could this be a new mission from the general's manor for their spy? Unbeknownst to him, Zheng Shuyao already knew there was a prince hiding behind the screen. The thought of him anxiously trying to see the letter's contents filled her with secret delight. She slowly opened the envelope. On the letter were only 2 large characters, return. The next moment, a puff of powder drifted out. Zheng Shuyao suddenly found it difficult to breathe, followed by a violent coughing fit. She understood this was a warning from the general's manor. Alarm bells rang in her heart once more. She had to accelerate her search for the antidote. She no longer wanted to be a puppet whose life was controlled by others. The prince behind the screen couldn't sit still. If Jean Sure hadn't stopped him, he probably would have rushed out in front of Zhang Hanyan. Jing Haogu struggled to suppress his anger and sat back down, his expression turning incredibly grim. He watched as Zheng Shuyao was helped back to her room, supported by her maid, Liang Chong. Only then did Jing Haogu emerge from behind the screen. He didn't need a guess to know that the powder wasn't anything good. Afterwards, Jing Haoge pretended nothing had happened and returned to his room. He heard from his servants that someone from the general's manor had come to visit. "Was there something the matter?" he asked. Zhen Qiao's eyes darted around. "Nothing important. My family simply missed me and specifically sent my younger sister to visit." Jing Haoge didn't ask any further questions. The two strolled to the pond. After much deliberation, Zhen Qiao finally couldn't hold back any longer. Remembering the two glaring characters in the letter, she cautiously tested the waters. "Why, Lord, I've been homesick lately. Could I go back for a visit?" Upon hearing this, Jing Haoge suddenly turned and took Zhen Qiao's hand. His expression was incredibly gentle. "My beloved consort is with me day and night. I'm not used to you suddenly leaving. I'll accompany you on this visit home." His words were airtight. It seemed he wouldn't easily let her return to the general's manor alone. "But your highness has many important matters to attend to. If you follow me even for a visit home, won't people gossip?" Jing Haoge smiled and plucked a cherry blossom, gently tucking it behind Zhen Qiao's ear. "How I choose to dote on you is my affair. There's no need to care about what others think. My beloved consort, do you intend to please others and disappoint me?" One couldn't help but admire Jing Haoge's natural talent for charming women. He had already surpassed countless hesitant men. Hearing this, Zhen Qiao realized that no matter what excuse she came up with, she wouldn't be able to persuade the prince. So she stopped talking, secretly thinking, "So be it. It's just as well to let him see with his own eyes the animosity between me and the general's manor." However, that night, for Zhen Qiao, who had inhaled the new powder, was an excruciating one. She lay helplessly in bed, struggling. Both her body and mind endured unbearable pain. Such a strong dose. It seemed the general's manor was becoming desperate. The next morning, what should have been a glorious return to her family home, Zhen Qiao, tormented all night, was pale. Seeing this, Jing Haoge couldn't help but ask, "My beloved consort, are you feeling unwell?" But in his presence, Zhen Qiao refused to reveal any of her pain. Jing Haoge felt her pain in his heart. He could only silently add a few more pieces of meat to her bowl. This small gesture moved Zhen Qiao 100 times more than hearing his exaggerated sweet nothings. The Prince Mu and his consort grandly embarked on the carriage towards the general's manor. This was also their journey to a Hongmen banquet. Zhen Hanyan was furious. Her sister was about to get a beating as soon as she got home. Zhen Qiao was just a pawn of the general's manor. Why was she now being treasured by Prince Mu? If only she had been the one to marry into the prince's manor. Seeing Prince Mu's indifferent demeanor, Zhen Hanyan was filled with rage. "Sister, what did you say to His Highness? Why is he avoiding me? You know I admire him, yet you still slander me in front of him." However, Zhen Qiao was no longer the pushover she once was. "When did my affections become something you could slander?" Zhen Hanyan raised her hand angrily, about to strike her. Unexpectedly, as she truly stumbled out of the kiln, Jing Haoge, quick-eyed and deft, caught her in his arms. The next moment, a vigorous and powerful voice came from within the residence. The three attendants turned their heads as one. It was General Zhen Tianhua. He instructed Zhen Hanyan to stay and accompany the prince, while Yao Er went inside to speak with his father privately. Zhen Qiao understood. While ostensibly for women's chatter, this was actually a summons for reprimand. She followed her father towards the study. Jing Haoge watched her, silent. All she needed was a single glance from him, and he would offer assistance. But Zhen Qiao didn't dare to look up. Just as she was about to leave, Jing Haoge reached out and tugged on the corner of her robe. Zhen Qiao turned back. She saw his face, dark and brooding. Could it be he didn't want to be left alone with Zhen Hanyan? Zhen Qiao didn't dwell on it, following her father into the study. As soon as she entered, Zhen Tianhua angrily ordered her to kneel. "That day, I arranged the assassination. Why did you shield the prince?" Zhen Qiao inwardly cursed his ruthlessness. Outwardly, she forced herself to appear utterly aggrieved. "Father, your daughter didn't intentionally sabotage your plan. Only by doing so could I allay the prince's suspicions of me." At this point, tears streamed down her face. Zhen Qiao flawlessly performed her years-long practiced act of distress. "You don't know, father, to outsiders, your daughter enjoys every favor in the prince's manor. In reality, I tread on thin ice. The prince is constantly wary of me. He even hides a dagger under his pillow every night before sleep. Seeing this pitiful display, Zhen Tianhua gritted his teeth in frustration, switching to a softer tactic. Enough, enough. Since it wasn't your fault, I won't hold it against you. Also, I've recently discovered your mother's whereabouts. You just need to stay in the prince's manor and work for me. I'll take care of your mother. Knowing the old fox was testing her, Zhen Chuyao could only suppress her anger, feigning delight. Is that true? Thank you, father. I will certainly handle things well for you. The next moment, Zhang Hanyin stormed in, fuming with anger, and complained to their father. Father, just now, I showed the prince my calligraphy and paintings, because I accidentally included a painting elder sister Yao had previously given me. He accused me of showing off with someone else's work, saying I was vain and pretentious. It must be elder sister who constantly speaks ill of me in front of the prince, causing him to misunderstand me. Hearing this, Zhen Chuyao smiled that I've never given my sister any paintings. However, I did lose a painting of two fish after I married, and I repainted it to hang in my room. Perhaps the prince saw the similar brushstrokes and thought my sister was stealing someone else's work to save face. That's why he said those things. Zhen Chuyao was composed and elegant, her expression not betraying a hint of panic. On the other hand, Zhang Hanyin, who had falsely accused her, was at a disadvantage for the first time. A strange feeling arose. Zhen Chuyao had changed, and this made Jin Tianhua feel threatened. A qualified puppet shouldn't act beyond the master's control. Chuyao, as a daughter of the Zhen family, how can you casually slander your sister? Zhen Tianhua intended to use this as a warning to Zhen Chuyao, but her next words completely overturned his previous understanding of this pawn. Father, if you are too partial to my sister and hurt my feelings, and if this were to reach the ears of the court officials, wouldn't you be afraid of seeing your name on the censor-rates list? Zhen Tianhua's pupils dilated. Zhen Chuyao didn't give him a chance to rebuke her. She turned and said, I'll take my leave now. The prince must be waiting. She strode towards the door. In this game between pawn and player, the outcome was yet to be determined. Jing Haoji's figure appeared in the distance. Zhen Chuyao smiled as she approached him. Your Highness, shall we return to the manor for dinner? Jing Haogu took her hand and walked silently forward. He hadn't expected his seemingly gentle consort to be so fierce when angered. She's the most righteous, transmigrated, supporting female character I've ever seen. Even though she's suspected by the male lead and used by her father, caught between two sides, she refuses to be abandoned. She relies on her own meager strength to survive in the cracks. Knowing she's poisoned by the general's manner, she doesn't rely on the male lead's charity or beg the female lead for mercy. She buys all the medical books in the city, determined to learn from scratch, to find a way to counteract the bone poison in her body and free herself from control. But little did she know, the Mu Prince's heartbreak over her was far beyond ordinary. Any slight movement from Zhen Chuyao, and he could glean everything from the daily reports the princess consort sent for his comfort. Looking at the scattered books, Jing Haogo asked in confusion, What are you doing? Zhen Chuyao clearly hadn't expected the prince to appear at this moment. Since he was already there, she had to bluff her way through that it's hot recently, and I'm worried about your highness. I was thinking of learning some ways to relieve the summer heat from medical books. Jing Haogun nodded with apparent satisfaction, but in his heart, he knew his beloved consort was lying again. Then I'll leave it to my beloved consort. I await your summer remedies. A few days later, Zhen Chuyao, using the excuse of fetching medicine for the prince, left the manor. Following her memory, she went straight to a pharmacy. Her birth mother had left a book there, Yidianyan. In the book, Zhen Hanyin had previously stolen this, Yidianyan, and later used its contents to rapidly advance her position, securing her place in Jing Haoji's heart. But now, she had to reclaim what rightfully belonged to her. Zhen Chuyao entered the pharmacy. Shopkeeper, I need 3 ingredients, Duruo, Lunia, and Fei Lin. After she finished speaking, the old shopkeeper was overwhelmed with shock that Madam Is it madam who has returned? It turned out this pharmacy was once her mother's business. The shopkeeper was merely left in charge. In Zhen Shuyao's words were the code her mother left behind before she left. Seeing Zhen Shuyao, the spitting image of her mother, the old shopkeeper's eyes filled with tears. He placed the Yidianyan her mother left into Zhen Shuyao's hands. Before she left, he added, "Madam treated me with great kindness. Miss is her only blood relative. If you have any other needs, come here to find me." At this moment, Zhen Shuyao couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache. It turned out her mother had also cared for her. After composing herself, Zhen Shuyao left the pharmacy. Not far away, a figure flashed in a nearby alley. As expected, Jing Haoge hadn't relaxed his guard on her one bit. What a headache. Since she was already out, she might as well bring back a little something to repay Jing Haoge for his constant attention. Zhen Shuyao returned to the manor, carrying a bag of sticky rice cakes. At that moment, Jing Haoge was practicing swordsmanship in the courtyard. "What's in your hand?" he asked curiously. "I'll open it and show you." Unfolding the oiled paper wrapping, inside were several delicate sticky rice cakes. Jing Haoge was stunned. This was something he loved as a child, but he hadn't seen them for many years. Lost in thought, Zhen Shuyao had already placed the cakes before him. "Your Highness, please try some." Unable to refuse the kind offer. "I'll have one then." Jing Haoge was somewhat surprised. "How did you know I like sweets?" Zhen Shuyao smiled tenderly and said with utmost sincerity, "Knowing your Highness's preferences is nothing special. What matters is whether your Highness enjoys them." A barely perceptible blush rose in Jing Haoge's cheeks. He turned his head and coughed lightly. It's all right." He took the remaining rice cakes and turned to enter his room. Although his words were still indifferent, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but lift. It seemed this Mu Prince was quite a bit softer than described in the original book. The joyous villainess locked herself in her study for 7 days and 7 nights, solely to regain her freedom, to find a way to counteract the bone poison in her body. The moment Zhen Shuyao saw the words "alleviate poison," it was like rain after a long drought. She glimpsed the light of freedom. Without a moment's hesitation, she eagerly gathered the herbs to prepare the remedy. Looking up, Jing Haoge had appeared silently before her. Why beloved consort has acquired so many herbs? Are you planning to seek medical advice from me?" Although surprised, Zhen Shuyao was already accustomed to his sudden appearances. "I was worried we didn't have enough herbs at home, so I made sure we were fully stocked." Zhen Shuyao's words seemed innocuous enough, but to Jing Haoge's ears, he couldn't help but feel surprised by the word "home" she used. At this moment, a subtle emotion flickered in Jing Haoge's eyes. After a long pause, he smiled. "Why beloved consort is so thoughtful to have bought back so many herbs and medical books for me." Zhen Shuyao thought, how is it for him? This man really liked to put words in her mouth. Although speechless inwardly, she didn't show it at all. "Of course, it's all for your Highness." But how could Jing Haoge know the plan she was brewing? He slammed the door shut and pulled his beloved concubine onto his lap. He lowered his voice and asked about her visit back home yesterday. "This prince feels that General Zhen seems to dote on your younger sister more. Have you ever been wronged?" Hearing the probing question, Zhen Shuyao immediately became alert. "How could I be wronged in my own home? My sister and I are just engaging in some sisterly playfulness. Your Highness needn't worry." Zhen Shuyao's words were flawless. Unable to extract any useful information, Jing Haoge was unwilling to back down. "This prince has also heard that the Minister of Revenue has been unusually busy recently. I wonder if he has encountered any trouble. Your Highness is overthinking it. My father is often busy to the point of being unseen. It's rather unusual that your Highness is suddenly so concerned about my family's affairs. Could it be that your Highness cares about me, but is too embarrassed to say it directly? Is this your way of expressing your affection for me?" This mutual probing, without leaving a trace, could only be done by this pair of old foxes. Jing Haoge deeply understood the principle of strategic retreat. His thoughts shifted, and he simply put his arm around Zhen Shuyao's waist and drew closer. "Yaoer is right. You are delicate and soft, and this prince truly adores you. I just wonder when you will be willing to consummate our marriage with this prince." As he spoke, Jing Haoge continued to draw closer with a smile until he made the delicate beauty blush. He reached out and caught her as she was about to flee. Why beloved concubine, why are you running?" Zhen Shuyao tried to suppress her shyness and get off him, but the person behind her held her even tighter. He even lifted her up and carried her on his shoulder, walking straight into the bedroom. Jing Haogu gently placed his beloved concubine on the bed and slowly leaned down. Feeling the subtle teasing, Zhen Chuyao couldn't hold back any longer. She pushed him away and ran off without looking back. But she didn't see that the prince, whose scheme had succeeded, was now blushing to the tips of his ears. He was the rumored Mu Prince Su Fei, spoiled to the core, yet she consistently refused to consummate their marriage. Jing Haogu only needed to tease her a little, and Zhen Chuyao would avoid him for a full 7 days. However, today, she had to show up, because the Princess Royal had arrived. Jing Haogu had been raised by the Princess Royal since childhood, so she could be considered half of Zhen Chuyao's mother-in-law. And this mother-in-law, who hadn't shown her face for a year since the wedding, suddenly visited while the prince was at court. There must be a reason. Zhen Chuyao respectfully invited the Princess Royal to sit in the front hall. The Princess Royal had just taken a sip of tea when she asked directly, "I hear Haogu dotes on you excessively and has even handed over the household management to you." Zhen Chuyao couldn't help but feel nervous. "It's just that His Highness is busy with official matters, so I'm taking over temporarily. If the main wife enters the manor in the future, I will definitely hand over all authority and have the opportunity to serve by her side." Zhen Chuyao understood the Princess Royal's implication. Her words touched the Princess Royal's heart, and her expression softened slightly. "I'll be able to handle things so appropriately while enjoying the prince's favor. You are a clever concubine." Zhen Chuyao secretly rejoiced. It seemed the Princess Royal hadn't come with malicious intent. Just when she thought she had passed the mother-in-law's inspection, unexpectedly, she was glared at by the young man accompanying the Princess Royal. "Oh, you're my cousin's concubine. I don't see anything special about you besides your looks. My cousin is such an amazing person. How could he like you?" Zhen Chuyao rolled her eyes inwardly, but didn't bother arguing with the boy. Right. Your cousin is unparalleled in the world. Only a celestial fairy is worthy of him." But the next moment, the young man immediately reacted, "That you're mocking me." Zhang Hanshi was immediately enraged. Just as he was about to speak, a cold voice suddenly rang out. "Hanshi, stop." They both turned around. Jing Haogu had returned. He put his hand on his cousin's head and calmly instructed Zhen Chuyao, "Don't fool around with him." Then he went to the back garden to play chess and chat with the Princess Royal. Jing Haogu didn't bother beating around the bush. "Aunt, what brings you here today? There are rumors circulating that you dote on your concubine to an excessive degree." "Naturally, I had to come and see for myself." Jing Haoji's expression turned cold. "Aunt, you worry too much. I'm not someone who would be blinded by love. I dote on her because I want to use this to make the people behind her reveal their true colors." The Princess Royal paused, then shook her head with a smile. "Indeed, you've always been a sensible child." As they spoke, Jing Haogu seemed to see something upsetting, a flicker of annoyance flashing in his eyes. The Princess Royal turned and followed Jing Haoji's gaze. She saw Zhen Chuyao chatting and laughing with her younger cousin on the bridge. The Princess Royal was surprised. At this moment, she hadn't even realized that his feelings for the concubine were perhaps more than just taking advantage of her. A moment later, Zhen Chuyao and her cousin arrived in the courtyard. The naive younger cousin, clinging to his older cousin, was about to complain about the sharp-tongued concubine. Zhen Chuyao, however, appeared very calm. This back-and-forth exchange caused Jing Haoji's anger to flare. Zhang Hanshi then addressed Zhen Chuyao as sister-in-law. These words stunned even Zhen Chuyao. Properly speaking, only the official wife of the prince could be addressed as sister-in-law by Zhang Hanshi. In everyone's eyes, she was a love-struck concubine with nothing but beauty. Yet with just a glance, she saw through the scheming prince and the Princess Royal's mutual attraction. Seeing the Princess Royal's game of go about to be lost to Jing Haogu, Zhen Chuyao offered, "Your Highness, may I place a piece for you?" The Princess Royal readily agreed. Zhen Chuyao decisively picked up a white piece and placed it on the board with a clack. Jing Haogu, opposite her, contemplated for a long time, his furrowed brow slowly smoothing out. "I lose." Zhang Hanshi, beside him, was incredulous. How could cousin lose? The Princess Royal was also surprised. It was the first time she had seen Hao lose it go. Jing Haoge smiled, but said nothing. Even he hadn't expected this concubine to be so capable. After this incident, Zhang Hanqi, who had just looked down on Jin Chuyao, changed his opinion of her considerably. On the way back to his room, his eyes practically bored holes into Zhang Chuyao. Uncomfortable under his gaze, Zhang Chuyao asked, "What are you doing?" "In nothing. It's just that this young master suddenly thinks you're almost good enough for my cousin. You're actually quite impressive." The young man's straightforward praise caught Zhang Chuyao off guard. The friction between them instantly vanished. Neither of them noticed Jing Haoge walking ahead, acting strangely. While his cousin was present, Zhang Hanqi leaned in and whispered, "Today, I only spoke to you a few more words, and cousin acted like a jealous fool." Zhang Chuyao was completely confused, not understanding what he meant. Jing Haoge, however, with a single glance, knew what the boy was thinking. He said sharply, "Zhang Hanqi." The younger cousin immediately took off. Zhang Chuyao, left behind, faced Jing Haoge's gloomy expression. Confused, she asked, "Your Highness, what's wrong?" Before Jing Haoge could answer, someone arrived to announce that Miss Shi requested an audience with the concubine. Zhang Chuyao knew this Miss Shi Wenshu, was the villainous supporting female character who admired Jing Haoge in the original story. Seeing the prince return to the front hall, Shi Wenshu respectfully greeted the Princess Royal and the young prince, completely ignoring Zhang Chuyao. This action caused the expressions of all four present to change. Such blatant hostility made Zhang Chuyao uncomfortable. Jing Haoge, without any politeness, directly asked, "Miss Shi, why do you not greet the concubine?" Shi Wenshu was taken aback. Realizing the prince's implication, her eyes reddened. Why? She bowed to Zhang Chuyao. "Greetings, concubine." Zhang Chuyao didn't say much, simply smiling and nodding in acknowledgement. This Miss Shi is so openly hostile. I wonder what her game is. Shi Wenshu suppressed her displeasure and forced a gentle smile that I've heard that Sister Zhang is proficient in the arts of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I've come specifically to seek a friendly competition with you. Zhang Chuyao was stunned by these words. The Princess Royal's expression turned serious. Jing Haoge's face darkened. Although rumors circulated that the prince's concubine was spoiled and narrow-minded, no one had dared to come and challenge her directly. But this Miss Shi clearly hadn't come at the right time. Zhang Hanqi, having just improved his opinion of Zhang Chuyao, naturally couldn't tolerate an outsider insulting his sister-in-law. Everyone knows Miss Shi excels in calligraphy and painting, yet you insist on challenging my sister-in-law to a competition. What are your true intentions? Shi Wenshu panicked and glanced at the prince and Princess Royal sitting to the side. Both seemed to tacitly approve of Zhang Hanqi's behavior. Although he didn't understand why they were all helping Zhang Chuyao, he had to force himself to challenge Shi Wenshu. "Are you only brave enough to hide behind others?" However, Zhang Chuyao didn't rise to the bait. "Even if I don't accept Miss Shi's challenge, what then?" Shi Wenshu grew even more anxious. If Zhang Chuyao doesn't even dare to accept this small matter, I'm afraid it really proves she's all style and no substance. It means His Highness Prince Mu has misjudged her. Shi Wenshu was determined to make Prince Mu see Zhang Chuyao's true colors. But she didn't expect that at this point. Zhang Chuyao would just sneer and deliberately move closer to Jing Haoge, His Highness's concubine. Am I not even allowed to refuse a young lady's request? Playing these little tricks in front of me? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Jing Haoge maintained his indulgent demeanor. Shi Wenshu's eyes reddened with anger. "Your Highness, are you really going to indulge her like this?" A long silence followed her words. Jing Haoge gently curved his lips, his eyes calm. "Whatever Chuyao says, I agree with." I had never seen such a magnanimous princess consort. 1 second, they were rivals locked in a battle of wits. The next, she was coaxed into a blushing young wife. Just a moment ago, the cunning prince, right in front of Shi Wenshu, ignited. An image of utterly doting on his princess consort, instantly making the naive Miss Shi flush with anger. However, seeing her rival lose face, Zhen Chuyao didn't pursue the matter. Actually, Miss Shi, you're so outstanding, you really don't need to pine after one man. It wouldn't be difficult for you to marry a virtuous young gentleman from a good family. Xin Chuyao calmly invited Shi Vinshu to sit beside her. Shi Wenshu remained stunned for a long time, before finally stammering, "You're telling me to marry someone else? Why don't you marry someone else?" Zhen Chuyao sighed inwardly. If it weren't for the general's manners threats, she wouldn't want to marry Jing Haoge. But in front of everyone, she, the love-struck concubine, naturally couldn't reveal her true feelings. She had to force a smile and reply, "I'm already married to His Highness. His Highness treats me very well. I can't just remarry, can I? Then who do you think I can marry?" Although Shi Wenshu's voice still held a trace of tears, her words clearly lacked the previous resentment. It was just a casual question, but Zhen Chuyao seriously considered it, even listing a string of suitable young gentlemen. As Shi Wenshu listened, a flicker of hope seemed to ignite within her. And, marriage isn't the only way out. As long as you're confident enough, you never need to rely on anyone. Before Zhen Chuyao could finish, the blushing Shi Wenshu covered her mouth. You're a woman. How can you talk so casually about marriage? I don't want to marry any of them. Didn't you ask me? Looking at the flustered Miss Shi, Zhen Chuyao couldn't resist teasing her further. She leaned in close to Shi Wenshu's ear with a mischievous grin. "You don't want to marry them? Could it be you want to marry me?" This completely bewildered the adorable Shi Wenshu. This scoundrel, seeing the two getting along so harmoniously, Jing Haoge felt a pang of displeasure. She's even able to charm young girls. "Chuyao, pour me another cup of tea." As soon as Jing Haoge spoke, Zhen Chuyao noticed the coldness in his voice. She skillfully refilled his cup with hot water, thoughtfully reminding him in a gentle voice, "Your Highness, you sleep lightly at night. It's best to drink less tea during the day." The sudden concern startled Jing Haoge. He then imitated her tone, replying softly, "These past few days, I've been taking the medicine you prepared for me to improve my health. My dear consort, you needn't worry." These words caused everyone to gasp. What shocking news! Improving his health? Was Prince Mu impotent? And the princess consort was personally preparing tonics for him? Jing Haoge spoke these blunt words casually, leaving Zhen Chuyao blushing crimson. He didn't forget to confirm with her seriously, "Isn't that right, my dear consort?" The atmosphere in the room became awkward. Finally, the experienced Princess Royal chuckled and broke the silence that I was worried that you two weren't taking care of each other. Now that Chuyao is so attentive to Haoge, it's quite enviable. Hearing this, Jing Haoge pulled Zhen Chuyao to stand before the Princess Royal. Don't worry yet. Chuyao and I are deeply in love and will certainly take good care of each other. Zhen Chuyao understood that His Highness was putting on an act again, so she played along. After seeing the Princess Royal off, Zhen Chuyao met the Oscar-worthy actor's gaze once more. This time, she couldn't help but be lost in thought. The prince was, after all, jealous. The princess consort only spoke 3 sentences and turned her rival into her best friend. Jing Haoge couldn't understand. The two women were at daggers drawn this morning. How could they bury the hatchet in just half a day? Zhen Chuyao solemnly explained how she and Miss when headed off right away. The more Jing Haoge listened, the more jealous he felt. He stared intently at his beloved consort's face for a good while. Hit off right away? It seemed like she hadn't even hit it off with him that way. Jing Haoge turned away, sulking, and strode towards the pearl chamber. Tonight, this king will stay here. Zhen Chuyao panicked. He wants to stay the night again? Could it be he wants to again? This won't do. Remembering how close she came to succumbing to him last time, Zhen Chuyao immediately rallied her spirits. To avoid another wrestling match with Jing Haoge in bed, this time she chose to play it safe. She bowed respectfully to Jing Haoge, which surprised him that you're suddenly being so formal. Zhen Chuyao then adopted an air of self-restraint. The moon waxes and wanes. All things must be in moderation. Even if your highness favors me, I dare not be too presumptuous. Moreover, your highness will eventually marry the official princess consort. I don't want things to be too difficult then. Zhen Chuyao's expression was tinged with melancholy. Jing Haoge's brow furrowed. Why, beloved consort? Why do you say such things? Have I not been good enough to you? He didn't know that Zhen Chuyao was only feigning sadness to avoid sharing a bed with him and accidentally crossing the line. As she spoke, 2 tears slipped from the corners of her eyes. I suddenly realized today that your highness will one day marry the official princess consort. I beg your highness's forgiveness. The tears fell, landing directly on Jing Hao's heart. This unexpected display of emotion made the cunning prince inexplicably flustered. He grabbed Zhen Xiao's arm. Speak properly. What's wrong? Was it my aunt? Or did Miss Sherwin say something to you in private? Zhen Xiao was taken aback. Why were they suddenly brought up? She quickly waved her hands. The Princess Royal and Miss Sher are the kindest people. Your Highness is overthinking it. She looked as if she wouldn't allow anyone to speak ill of her friends. But Zhen Xiao had cried her tears and played her part, yet Jing Haoge still stared at her, unmoving. Zhen Xiao lamented inwardly. Don't men dislike clingy women? Why isn't he leaving? Fina, if you won't leave, I will. Your Highness must be tired. I'll go make you some soup in the kitchen. Watching Zhen Xiao dash away, Jing Haoge was left bewildered. He returned to his room and pondered for a long time. Unable to understand Zhen Xiao's behavior, he couldn't settle down. He got up and headed toward the kitchen. Opening the door, he found Zhen Xiao sitting on a small stool by the stove, fast asleep. Jing Haoge immediately ordered the servants to bring a cloak. He wrapped the princess consort up completely and carried her away. This woman, really. It's so cold at night, and she doesn't even cover herself. At this moment, Zhen Xiao couldn't have imagined that all her efforts to avoid sleeping with Jing Haoge had been in vain. The next day, she opened her eyes to find herself completely exposed. The prince's handsome face was inches from hers to what's going on. Zhen Xiao was utterly shocked, noticing the panic in her eyes. Jing Haoge found it rather amusing. Did my beloved consort sleep well? I didn't sleep a wink all night. Not a wink. Did something actually happen? Zhen Xiao's face flushed as her imagination ran wild. She tried to remain calm. He must be testing her. If something really happened, how could she be completely unaware? She played along with Jing Haoge's suggestive tone. Then your highness must be exhausted, yet remembers nothing. Jing Haoge, still lying down, opened his eyes slightly and pulled her closer. Now that my beloved consort is awake, perhaps this king should let you experience it again. At such close proximity, Zhen Xiao could even hear his strong heartbeat. She gritted her teeth and remained still. Just a little longer. It's almost time. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the steward announced from outside, Your Highness, it's time for court. Zhen Xiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Unbeknownst to her, the prince, who had been teasing her, was blushing to the tips of his ears. Jing Haoge quickly got up, turned his back, and pretended to say, what a pity, though he himself was almost at his limit. After Jing Haoge left, Zhen Xiao lay down weakly. Every time she made an excuse to avoid consummating their marriage, it would only arouse Jing Haoge's suspicion. If only she could find someone to sleep with her, she could avoid this matter naturally. Suddenly, an idea struck Zhen Xiao. She would go find Sherwin Shu. The two agreed to go boating. Zhen Xiao took the opportunity to hint to the naive Miss Sher. Chances to talk with you are so rare. I'm so bored being alone at home. Why don't you come to the manor from now on? I know you're skilled in medicine, and you can also give me some guidance. Hearing her friend's invitation, Sherwin Shu was delighted. Only then did she feel something was amiss. You know I have feelings for the prince, and you still invite me to the manor? Zhen Xiao playfully winked and even tugged at her arm, acting coquettishly. If you want to come, I can't stop you. If I invite you, you'll owe me a favor, right? Sherwin Shu was clearly one who responded better to soft approaches than harsh ones. She turned away, thinking awkwardly. This person was so dashing and charming yesterday, but today, acting coquettishly is also so disarming. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhen Xiao continued to probe Sherwin Shu for information. I heard you seem to have a good relationship with my sister, Zhan Hanyin. Don't you know she also likes the prince? Sherwin Shu asked incredulously. He never told me that. He only told me that you used trickery to marry into the Moon Manor. Zhen Xiao wasn't surprised upon hearing this. Although Sherwin Shu was spoiled and wayward, she had a straightforward personality. Her hostility yesterday must have been due to the rumors she'd heard. Actually, I was forced by my father to marry the prince. I know you like him, but even if you become his official consort, you'll have to manage all his future concubines. Are you willing to do that? Sherwin Shu was stunned. She certainly knew the 4 words virtuous and dutiful, which her mother had instilled in her since childhood. But how much heartache did these 4 words entail? Seeing her sudden dejection, Zhang Chuyao smiled consolingly. All right, all right. It's not like we can't live without men. Look at us, two sisters enjoying this boat ride. Aren't we having a good time? This leisurely scene of the two, however, was witnessed from afar by the worried Jing Haoge and his younger cousin. The prince waited until evening before Zhen Chuyao and Shi Wenshu's boat reached the shore. Unexpectedly, as soon as they disembarked, they encountered the hostile Zhen Hanyan. Seeing this green tea, who was slandering Chuyao everywhere, Shi Wenshu flew into a rage. She started questioning Zhen Hanyan, pointing at her nose. You're the one who likes the prince, yet you're spreading rumors about Chuyao outside. Faced with the sudden accusation, Zhen Hanyan naturally refused to back down. Seeing that the two were about to start fighting at the manor, Zhen Chuyao stepped forward helplessly to intervene. Unexpectedly, as soon as she got close, Zhen Hanyan deliberately tripped her. Zhen Chuyao lost her balance and fell backward. Shi Wenshu tried to reach out and catch her, but she herself half-tumbled overboard. It looked as though Zhen Chuyao was about to fall into the lake. However, the expected icy chill didn't come. A figure flashed across the lake's surface. Zhen Chuyao's body landed softly in a warm embrace. The stoic prince finally couldn't contain himself any longer. Learning that his beloved consort was boating with her close friend, the prince brought his younger cousin to the lakeside pavilion. While Jing Haoge claimed to be drinking tea and chatting idly, his gaze never left Zhen Chuyao in the boat. And the moment his green tea sister appeared in his sight, the impatient prince couldn't sit still any longer. Seeing Zhen Hanyan trip Zhen Chuyao, Jing Haoge swiftly leaped toward the lake. He caught her just as she was about to plunge into the water. Before Zhen Chuyao could react, Jing Haoge leaped again. They landed steadily. Your Highness, why are you here so suddenly? I was worried about my beloved consort boating, so I came to see. Zhen Chuyao naturally didn't believe this sly fox had come for her. She immediately played along, feigning alarm. Jing Haoge instantly put on a frightened expression. It's a good thing your Highness arrived. I was so scared just now. Jing Haoge stiffened, looking away, suddenly appearing a little uncomfortable. Subconsciously, he held her even tighter. He looked at Zhen Hanyan with a cold expression. First, Miss Zhen, is this how the general usually teaches you? Zhen Hanyan felt extremely wronged. Your Highness, you saw clearly. I didn't do anything. It's my sister who's falsely accusing me. Zhen Chuyao didn't defend herself, but instead buried her face in Jing Haoji's chest, weeping softly. Jing Haoji's expression turned solemn that I saw it with my own eyes. You pushed Chuyao. How is this a false accusation? Someone, escort Zhen Hanyan back to the general's manor. Let the general deal with this. Although these words sounded like he was doting on his wife, they deepened Zhen Hanyan's hatred. Zhen Chuyao really didn't want to continue arguing with the green tea, so she simply closed her eyes and pretended to faint. Clearly, she didn't want to be further involved in this matter. Jing Haoge was startled. He looked at her half-closed eyes, but tacitly approved his actions. With Zhen Hanyan's feigned faint, Zhen Chuyao, unable to defend herself, felt even more chilled. Jing Haoge glanced at Zhen Hanqi behind him, indicating that he should handle the rest. He then carried Zhen Chuyao back. Expecting a bumpy ride and continued pretense, Zhen Chuyao, after being brought back to her room by Jing Haoge, unexpectedly fell asleep for real. When she woke up again, a servant girl informed her of the outcome. Someone from the general's manor had relayed a message. Zhen Hanyan had been confined to her quarters for half a month and tasked with copying scriptures over 100 times. They also specifically inquired whether the princess consort was satisfied. Zhen Chuyao replied helplessly, "It's best to ask His Highness about that." It was clearly Jing Haoge who had handled the matter. Yet it ended up seeming as if she had deliberately orchestrated it. Zhen Chuyao went to Jing Haoji's study. Just as she began to express her gratitude for what he had done earlier that day, Jing Haoge embraced her. My beloved consort, there's no need for words. If you've been wronged, I naturally must stand up for you. But your Highness, why were you suddenly at the lakeside today? Jing Haoge calmly replied, I knew you were going boating, so I went there specifically to meet you. Hearing such thoughtful words, Zhen Chuyao felt he was lying through his teeth. Turning her back within his embrace, she said, today's small matter between my sister and me has dragged your Highness into it. If my father were to form a negative opinion of your Highness because of this, I would feel truly sorry. Before Zhen Chuyao could finish speaking, Jing Haogu pulled her back into his embrace, his tone becoming even more gentle, seemingly intending to lull her into a false sense of security. If my father-in-law has any misunderstandings about me, wouldn't it be all right if my beloved consort puts in a good word for me when you return? Zhen Shuyao found herself in a difficult position, caught between two sides. It was best not to mention her situation at the general's manor. She decided to end the conversation, using sleepiness as an excuse to bid farewell to Jing Haoge, unaware that as he watched her walk away, Jing Haoji's heart was filled with mixed emotions. He had thought she would come to complain or plead for the general's manor, but she had remained silent on the matter. Because the prince had been getting physically affectionate with the princess consort lately, she decided to find some medicinal herbs to cool him down. However, this unintentional act caused the prince to vomit blood and faint. Half a day earlier, Zhan Shuyao had specifically asked Shi Wenshu if there were any herbs that could be added to pastries that would reduce internal heat without being bitter. She wanted to use some to cool down the prince. Shi Wenshu's grandfather was a physician in the imperial hospital, and she had been familiar with medicinal herbs since childhood. After some thought, she remembered a herb called Huanling orchid grass, which reduces heat and has no aftertaste. So, as soon as Jing Haoge returned from court, Zhan Shuyao had someone deliver the mung bean cakes she had made herself. Zhan Hanshi, who had returned with him, saw them and reached for one, only to have his hand swatted away by his cousin. Jing Haoge picked up a cake and put it in his own mouth. Savoring the sweetness of the mung bean cake, his mood unconsciously lifted, until the next moment, when a burning pain suddenly shot through his chest and he abruptly coughed up blood. Zhan Hanshi, panicked, yelled for the steward. Countless thoughts flashed through Jing Haoji's mind. As he lost consciousness, he grabbed Zhan Hanshi's hand and instructed him not to make things difficult for Zhen Shuyao. With that, he collapsed. Soon, a servant girl hurriedly relayed the news to the princess consort. Hearing that the prince had collapsed after eating the cake she made, Zhen Shuyao's back went cold. She immediately lifted her skirts and rushed to Jing Haoji's study. Inside the room, Zhan Hanshi kept watch by his cousin's bedside, the room silent. The imperial physician had not yet arrived. Zhen Shuyao took Shi Wenshu's hand, wanting her to examine the prince first. Shi Wenshu was clearly panicked as well. After all, her knowledge was theoretical. She had never actually treated anyone. Zhen Shuyao grew even more anxious. The bone poison in her body had not yet been completely cured. If Jing Haoge died, she would become useless to the general's manor. Zhan Tianhua would certainly get rid of her immediately. Thinking of this, Zhen Shuyao's voice unconsciously took on a desperate edge. Can you please examine His Highness? See if his life is in danger. Shi Wenshu, unable to bear it, could only try. She carefully felt Jing Haoji's pulse. After a long while, she slowly said, His Highness's pulse is irregular, but he's not weak. He should be savable. After Zhen Shuyao calmed down, she asked calmly, how did His Highness suddenly become like this? Zhan Hanshi, his face grim, replied, my cousin became like this after eating the cakes you sent. Zhen Shuyao suddenly felt unable to defend herself. She broke out in a cold sweat. To prove her innocence, she picked up a piece of mung bean cake and ate it. Under the shocked gazes of Zhan Hanshi and Shi Wenshu, Zhen Shuyao took a deep breath and replied, you see, this cake isn't poisoned. Seeing this, Zhan Hanshi finally wavered. But the next moment, Shi Wenshu's voice quietly sounded again. The cake not being poisoned doesn't mean there's no problem. Zhen Shuyao's heart lurched. She asked Shi Wenshu incredulously, what do you mean? Zhan Hanshi, however, understood the implication that you know something is wrong with my cousin's health, and deliberately made him eat something cold, causing his qi and blood to flow in reverse. Zhen Shuyao loudly defended herself. If I truly had such an ability, why would I so blatantly make the cakes myself, right here? Her voice trailed off. Shi Wenshu and Zhan Hanshi remained silent, clearly still suspicious of her. Zhen Shuyao felt frustrated, her head throbbing. There was absolutely nothing wrong with her cakes. Then what was the problem? Forcing herself to stay calm, she asked, could I first inquire with His Highness's guards where he went today, what he ate, and what he touched? After my cousin left the palace today, he didn't eat anything other than your cakes. Hearing this, Zhang Chuyao suddenly realized the truth. It's a problem from within the palace. Fortunately, after the imperial physician's treatment, Jing Haoji's life was not in danger. But before Zhang Chuyao could get to the bottom of it, someone from the general's manor arrived. The timing of their arrival to summon her back was clearly no coincidence. Zhang Chuyao couldn't help but think about the unconscious Jing Haoge. Could Zhen Tianhua be behind his current state? A flicker of distress crossed Zhang Chuyao's eyes, but she couldn't do anything about it. The matter had come to this. She had to go back. Regardless of whether Zhen Tianhua was responsible or not, she had to make him believe that Jing Haoji's condition wasn't serious, lest the old fox seize the opportunity to exploit the situation. She seamlessly switched between different roles. The playful princess consort, sentimental, gentle, and considerate in front of the prince, putting on a bold front and concealing her sharpness in front of her father, feigning arrogance, and refusing to show weakness in front of her sister. Her purpose in doing all this was simply to find a way to survive in the cracks. As the princess consort, placed in the prince's manor by the general's manor, every step Zhang Chuyao took was incredibly difficult. After Jing Hao ate the cakes she made and collapsed, vomiting blood, the general's manor conveniently sent someone to summon her back. Zhen Tianhua was eager to know the prince's true condition. Chuyao, what happened to Jing Haoge? Zhang Chuyao replied calmly. His Highness is only slightly unwell. The servants in the manor are overreacting. He's fine. Such a simple answer naturally couldn't convince Zhen Tianhua. If you want to survive, you'd better tell the truth. Zhen Tianhua's gaze pierced through Zhang Chuyao, causing her to tremble involuntarily. But she absolutely couldn't show any panic. She had to completely conceal the news of Jing Haoji's collapse. She quietly calmed herself and smiled. Looking up, I did give His Highness something to eat, but he won't be in any danger for a while. Father has waited for so long. I'm sure he won't be in a hurry, lest he ruin years of planning. Zhen Tianhua stared intently at her calm demeanor. After a long while, he suddenly burst into laughter. This is good news. Why hide it from me? Princess Chang's son, Zhan Hanqi, and Duke Zheng's daughter, Shi Wenshu, are still at the manor. I didn't dare act rashly and had to proceed cautiously. Moreover, His Highness is not in serious danger. I was afraid of displeasing Father. This explanation was perfectly reasonable. Zhen Tianhua didn't press her further that you're right. I don't mind waiting a few more days. But if you keep delaying this and making me worry, I won't be able to focus on helping you find your mother. Although Zhang Chuyao inwardly cursed the old fox for using her mother to manipulate her, she obediently replied, I understand, Father. She then rose to leave. Just as she was about to exit, she glanced at Zhang Hanyan waiting outside and deliberately added, Father just sent someone to the manor to say he would punish my sister with confinement and copying scriptures. Yet, she seems to be moving about freely. If you don't even bother with appearances, I'm afraid it will displease His Highness. Zhen Chuyao had barely finished speaking when Zhen Tianhua understood her meaning. Thus, after Zhen Chuyao left the room, before Zhen Hanyan, who had come looking for trouble, could make things difficult, the general's order arrived just in time. Second miss was to be confined for half a month. I'm surprised Father always punishes me for this proper lady. It must be you stirring things up. Zhang Chuyao listened to her outburst and calmly turned around, not responding to her accusations. Instead, she gave a meaningful look back at her arrogant and domineering younger sister. This look alone infuriated Zhang Hanyan. As Zhen Chuyao boarded the carriage back to the prince's residence, it was nearing evening. Exhausted after a tense day, she still remembered to instruct her attendant. If anyone asks you about my demeanor after leaving the general's manor, tell them I seemed wrong. Zhen Chuyao had just returned to the prince's residence, but a new storm was already brewing. The Princess Royal and the Duchess had arrived. Zhen Chuyao had barely finished her evening greetings when the Duchess was the first to attack. The prince wasn't even dead yet, and you were already rushing back to your family home. Now that you know the prince is all right, you want to come back. Zhen Chuyao had a splitting headache. Dealing with both women at once was clearly impossible. She decided to handle them one by one. Mustering her courage, she looked towards the silent Princess Royal. Would your Highness mind if we spoke privately? The Princess Royal paused for a moment, recalling how sensible and understanding Zhen Chuyao had seemed during their last encounter. Perhaps she truly had a valid reason. She granted Zhen Chuyao's request. The two went outside. The Princess Royal asked coldly, "Speak. Why did you return to the general's manor at this time?" Zhen Chuyao lowered her head, offering a sincere explanation. "Yesterday, my younger sister and I happened to meet by the lake. She nearly pushed me into the lake. When His Highness learned of this, he publicly reprimanded her. However, my return to the general's manor after the incident displeased my father. He has always doted on my sister and feared your highness would be troubled by this matter. I had to return home to explain the situation clearly, lest it escalate while His Highness was unconscious." Zhen Xiao's voice was now tinged with a sob. After speaking, she dropped to her knees. The Princess Royal's expression softened slightly as, "Oh, it's that petty squabble with Di Shu again. Get up. We'll discuss this when Hao Gu awakens." Zhen Chuyao had just risen when a servant rushed in to report that Prince Mu had awakened. The prince, poisoned by his consort, had finally regained consciousness. This meant that a new round of tension and probing would begin between the two. Although the cause of his sudden vomiting of blood and subsequent loss of consciousness remained unclear, Jing Haoge feigned complete trust in his consort, dismissing the Princess Royal and the Duchess, who had come specifically to see him. He claimed that having his consort by his side was sufficient. This act seemed to demonstrate considerable trust in Zhen Chuyao. But in reality, it was to avoid arousing suspicion by having too many people around. Upon learning of Jing Hao Ji's awakening, Zhen Chuyao hurried to the kitchen, insisting on brewing his medicine herself. She knew that Jing Haoge must be deeply suspicious of her at this moment. To overcome the upcoming difficulties, she pretended to accidentally touch the scalding hot medicine pot. Enduring the burning pain, her eyes glistened with tears. She intended to use this incident as an excuse to personally deliver the medicine to the prince. Zhen Chuyao arrived at Jing Hao Ji's room with a bowl of medicine, submissively offering it to him. "Please, your highness, drink your medicine to reduce the fever." The red burn mark on her delicate, white hand was particularly noticeable. Jing Hao Ji's gaze lingered on the mark, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "My dear consort, what happened to your hand?" Zhen Chuyao meekly lowered her head. "Your highness, please drink your medicine quickly. It won't be good if it gets cold. I cannot share your suffering, but I only wish for your highness to recover soon." As she spoke, Zhen Chuyao's voice choked with emotion. Jing Haoge sensed her distress. He spoke gently. "I know you're concerned for me. I've already heard from my aunt about your sudden return to the general's manor. Don't take the Duchess's words to heart." Zhen Chuyao hadn't expected Jing Haoge to offer such patient comfort. Could it be that he truly no longer suspected her? Tears welled up in her eyes, perfectly portraying a look of relieved release. "As long as your highness doesn't blame me for meddling, I'm content." Jing Haoge was taken aback. "Why are you crying?" He felt a strange sense of helplessness. The next moment, Zhen Chuyao shook her head with a bitter smile. Leaning against Jing Hao Ji's chest, she confessed, "I returned to the general's manor while your highness was unconscious. If your highness is angry, please punish me." Zhen Chuyao understood that it was better to confess than to let Jing Haoge discover something and become suspicious of her. At the mention of the general's manor, Jing Hao Ji's expression darkened slightly. He continued to comfort her personally, however, saying it was just a small matter and that she was overreacting. After a pause, he added casually, "Perhaps if you were my official consort, you wouldn't have to be constantly running around because of your father's words, and naturally, you wouldn't be bullied by your sister anymore." Jing Haoge said as his hand slowly moved to cup her face. Zhen Chuyao felt a chill run down her spine. His words, seemingly full of affection, actually concealed a hidden agenda. This was clearly a trap disguised with deep affection and promises of wealth. His probing never ceased. Zhen Chuyao replied demurely, "I am content to be by your highness's side, even with my injuries. I do not yearn for the position of official consort. It is late, your highness. Remember to take your medicine and rest well." Having said this, Zhen Chuyao rose and left Jing Hao Ji's room. She knew that to receive protection, one must pay a corresponding price. How could she not understand this principle? Inside, Jing Haoge furrowed his brow in thought. After a long while, he asked those outside, "Investigate the cause of my fainting spell. What did the imperial physician say?" A voice replied, Imperial physician, he said that while your highness's condition appears to be poisoning, it is actually due to a rare herb, lily of the valley, present in the pastries sent by the princess consort. However, the true cause of your highness's ailment requires further investigation. Jing Haogu pondered this, then ordered them to continue investigating the incense used in the imperial study on the day of the attack. He also instructed them to inform the general that he had eaten the pastries sent by the princess consort, but was unharmed. He would simply wait and see if General Zhan would make a move. He would also observe what actions his doting princess consort would take. The next day, Zhen Chuyao, who had been anxious all night, hadn't slept a wink. She had just risen when a servant girl delivered a box of osmanthus cake. The servant relayed the general's message. It contains lily of the valley, which is excellent for reducing internal heat. The princess consort must eat it together with his highness. Zhen Chuyao's heart sank. How did Jin Tianhua know there was lily of the valley in the pastries she gave Jing Haoge? Lily of the Valley wasn't poisonous, but Zhen Tianhua deliberately mentioning it in front of the entire household was clearly meant to make Jing Haoge suspicious. The old fox was deliberately trying to frame her. Sure enough, a short while later, the palace guards surrounded the princess consort's courtyard. Please rest easy in the courtyard, princess consort, they said. If you reconsider, you can have the guards send a message to his highness. Zhen Chuyao, unable to defend herself, forced a smile and replied coldly, I have nothing to reconsider. If his highness doesn't wish to see me, he need only say so. Why go to such lengths? At this moment, Zhen Chuyao's heart turned to ice. Had all her efforts been in vain? Was she still unable to escape the fate of being torn apart by 5 horses? But no matter what, she would never admit to things she hadn't done. She hadn't wronged Jing Haoge. Meanwhile, Shi Wenshu anxiously sought out Jing Haoge and explained that he had recommended the lily of the valley to Zhen Chuyao. Therefore, the princess consort had nothing to do with his highness coughing up blood. He hadn't expected the situation to escalate to Hao's arrest. He felt he had to at least reveal what he knew. Unexpectedly, Jing Haoge wasn't surprised by this revelation. He simply said, understood, and dismissed him. He knew that if Zhen Chuyao truly had ulterior motives, he had plenty of ways to make people confess willingly. Not long after Shi Wenshu left in indignation, the steward, having settled the princess consort, came to report, relaying Zhen Chuyao's defiant words. Jing Haoji's expression was unreadable. He wondered if his consort's current attitude was a desperate act or genuine innocence. The prince finally uncovered the truth about the princess consort's supposed poisoning. It turned out the cause of his bleeding and fainting was the incense in the imperial study, and the pastries containing lily of the valley that the princess consort had sent were actually an antidote to the poisonous components in the incense. However, using it while affected by the poison caused a surge of energy and blood flow. After hearing the imperial physician's explanation, Jing Haoge realized he had indeed misunderstood Jin Chuyao. Meanwhile, Zhen Chuyao, under house arrest, wasn't passively waiting. In ancient texts, she discovered a method to induce immediate fainting and weakness. She wanted to use this method to test Jing Haoji's attitude towards her and see how far things had gone. It wasn't long before news of the princess consort's collapse reached the study. When Zhen Chuyao woke up again, Jing Haoge was watching over her. Although she had regained consciousness, the pain in her chest hadn't subsided. Seeing her curled up on the bed, Jing Haoge felt a pang of guilt that don't speak. Rest well. Zhen Chuyao turned her body away. Someone tried to poison your highness. It's best if your highness stays away from me, she said, her voice laced with a subtle witch. Her words made Jing Haoge feel even more guilty. He lowered his head and said patiently, I was wrong to suspect you. Zhen Chuyao deliberately turned her head and buried herself under the covers, pretending to ignore him. Inwardly, she breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he had come and apologized. This meant the matter of the lily of the valley had finally been cleared up. Jing Haoge, at a loss for what to do, pushed the blame onto the steward standing nearby that I was merely speaking casually. I didn't mean to blame my consort. The steward must have misunderstood. Zhen Chuyao still ignored him, but she felt that in this situation, showing some anger would be more in line with her usual playful and occasionally vexing personality. So, she threw off the covers and pushed Jing Haoge. Leave. I don't want to see you. I can't afford to offend you if you accidentally eat something wrong here. Jing Haoge was speechless. He lowered his head, only to see Zhen Chuyao's face, struggling to hold back tears. She continued to push him away, refusing to let go. The next moment, she closed her eyes and collapsed weakly against him. Jing Haoge panicked. "Chuyao, what's wrong?" Zhen Chuyao secretly cursed inwardly. That acting method from the playbook is too effective. She then pushed Jing Haoge's hand away, her voice weak and filled with disappointment. "That I'm fine. Your Highness, please attend to your duties." Jing Haoge softened again, instinctively pulling her into his arms. "Don't be upset anymore. I know you've been wronged." Tears welled up in Zhen Chuyao's eyes and began to stream down her face. When Jing Haoge cupped her face in his hands, she was still sobbing uncontrollably. Perhaps because she had unintentionally acted too realistically, a sudden, sharp pain shot through her chest. Noticing something was amiss, Jing Haoge urgently called for the imperial physician. "Quickly examine the princess consort. This is heart pain and fainting caused by excessive grief. She must avoid any further emotional distress." Zhen Chuyao had won this gamble. The prince, who had placed her under house arrest, was finally showing remorse. She was still the same person, but the once lively, vibrant Zhen Chuyao now appeared listless and lifeless before him. Jing Haoge felt a hollowness in his heart. He subconsciously wanted to explain himself further, but the words caught in his throat. Finally, he suppressed his irrational urge and simply said, "Rest well. Don't overthink things. I'll come see you tomorrow." Jing Haoge strode out of the room, afraid that if he stayed a moment longer, he wouldn't be able to control his emotions. It was practically a hasty retreat. Only after watching Jing Haoge completely disappear from sight did Zhen Chuyao, still in her room, dare to drop the sorrowful facade and breathe a sigh of relief. She wondered when this endless testing and emotional tug-of-war would end. Jing Haoge returned to his study alone. Today, he felt unusually disheartened. Her image kept flashing through his mind, sometimes quiet, sometimes playful, sometimes willful. For a long time, he couldn't quell the subtle turmoil in his heart. Then, a report arrived. It had been discovered that the 100 birds fragrance in the Imperial Studies incense was supplied by Imperial Physician Chen, who had close ties with General Zhen. Jing Haoge had believed that with the recently gathered evidence and Imperial Physician Chen's testimony, he could finally make Zhen Tianhua pay the price. However, before the next day's court session, Imperial Physician Chen was dead. He had reportedly committed suicide at home. Upon hearing this, Jing Haoge gave a cold laugh. It seemed he had underestimated his enemy. But even without Imperial Physician Chen's testimony, the evidence of the poisoning in the Imperial study was now gone. It doesn't mean Zhen Tianhua can clean up after everyone with a golden touch. And while Jing Haoge alone was suspicious of the poisoning, in another corner of the Wangfu, Zhen Chuyao had also noticed Zhen Tianhua's secret scheming. She had inquired about the Lin Lan grass at the medical clinic without anyone else's knowledge. Yet Zhen Tianhua was able to act so quickly. This meant there was someone from the general's mansion inside the clinic. So, she specifically ordered the old head physician to thoroughly investigate for spies, urging him to show no mercy, lest it ruin her upcoming plans for curing her bone ailment. 2 days later, the prince, who had been neglected for 3 days, once again came to see the consort. Zhen Chuyao, understanding the principle of moderation, was also prepared to stop here. Although still stiff with her, he finally started speaking to her. "Your Highness, coming to my humble abode, could it be that I have done something wrong again?" Seeing his slightly softened attitude, Zhen Chuyao reached for his hand and slowly began. "I heard from Imperial Physician Zhao that you specifically asked him to adjust your prescription the other day, balancing the medicinal properties while making the medicine less bitter. My dear consort is clearly concerned for me, so why are you still keeping your distance?" Zhen Chuyao lowered her head, pulling her hand back, suddenly looking sulky. "That I was just making a casual remark, not doing it intentionally. I'll go tell Imperial Physician Zhao not to use that formula anymore. If something happens to your Highness, I can't bear the responsibility." Hearing these words, a long-lost smile appeared on Jing Haoge's face. It was clear that his anger had mostly subsided. The next moment, he took Zhen Chuyao's hand and placed it on his forehead. "Too late. I've already taken that prescription. along with my consort's kind intentions, to heart. At this point, a hint of joy appeared between Zhen Qiao's brows. Seeing the timing was right, Jing Haogu again mentioned Jin Tianhua being impeached in court for oppressing the common people and accepting bribes. He specifically asked Zhen Chuyao, "Do you think your father would really do such a thing?" Zhen Chuyao fell silent. She knew it wasn't that simple. On the surface, he came to visit, but in reality, it was still to test her attitude towards Jin Tianhua. Zhen Qiao appeared very calm. "I rarely speak with my father. I know nothing about outside matters." Jing Haogu continued, "The emperor has ordered me to thoroughly investigate this matter. General Zhen is, after all, my father-in-law, so I must first ask for my consort's opinion." If she could be honest, she would want Jing Haogu to immediately get rid of this ticking time bomb. But at this moment, she feigned a helpless sigh. "A married woman follows her husband. Whatever your highness thinks, I think the same." She put on an understanding and sensible appearance. Jing Haogu smiled and nodded. "The my consort is truly generous and understanding. To have such a wife is truly a blessing." Zhen Chuyao suppressed her annoyance. "Anyone would be unable to bear such repeated probing. Your highness flatters me. It's merely that your consort has no desire for amusement." Although Zhen Chuyao was trying her best to control her emotions, she still unintentionally revealed a hint of resentment. Jing Haogu was taken aback, suddenly unsure how to respond. The two remained silent on the way back. Just as Zhen Chuyao was about to enter her room, she was reluctant to end things like this. Having finally reconciled, she suddenly turned around, offering a gentle smile. "The kitchen recently made some bamboo tube pastries. I'll have the servants send some over for your highness to try later." Jing Haogu happily agreed, but this only made him even more confused about her. The prince finally noticed something amiss with his consort, but the consort, suffering from bone poison, wasn't prepared to ask anyone for help. Zhen Chuyao borrowed a Southern Jiang medical book from Shi Wenshu. Through constant trial and error with medicines and formulas, she managed to develop a medicine to alleviate the bone poison through her own tireless efforts. Zhen Chuyao breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Jing Haogu didn't recover his memory, she would be temporarily safe. She didn't know that even the leftover medicinal dregs were being brought to the prince by Wei. Over time, Jing Haogu also discovered something unusual about this matter. It seemed that every time Zhen Chuyao saw someone from the general's mansion, she would become pale and uneasy. Noticing something was wrong, Jing Haogu secretly ordered Wei to take the dregs to the imperial physician for a closer look. That day, Zhen Chuyao, feeling revitalized, was playing around with Shi Wenshu in her room when Jing Haogu suddenly arrived. He happened upon this harmonious scene between the two. Jing Haoji's mood instantly became quite complex. He feigned composure and ordered Shi Wenshu to leave, then summoned someone unexpected by Zhen Chuyao, Imperial Physician Zhao. Before Zhen Chuyao could recover from her surprise, Jing Haogu began to explain, "My consort and I have always been deeply affectionate, so I'm quite puzzled. My beloved consort has been married for over half a year, yet she still hasn't conceived. Today, I'll have him examine you, my dear." Shi Wenshu and far away. Zhen Chuyao hadn't expected him to be so blunt, but she couldn't exactly tell him they hadn't consummated their marriage. So she had to maintain a serious composure and reply, "Your Highness is so thoughtful. Please have Imperial Physician Zhao examine me." Imperial Physician Zhao reached out to take her pulse. After a long while, he was still deep in thought. Zhen Chuyao was also unsure. Imperial Physician Zhao was quite experienced. Could he have detected the bone poison in her body? Zhen Chuyao stealthily glanced up, intending to see Jing Haoji's reaction, but saw him walking toward her desk. He started flipping through the medical books she had been studying recently, asking in a low voice, "My consort, why are you suddenly so interested in medicine?" Zhen Chuyao felt even more guilty. Suddenly, she lowered her head, her eyes brimming with tears, once again assuming a sorrowful demeanor. "Your Highness, don't you remember? I said I wanted to help you Li your health." Jing Haogu raised an eyebrow. This change of face was a bit too quick. Following Zhen Chuyao's evasive gaze, he looked towards the wardrobe inside. After a moment of contemplation, he turned and walked towards it. Zhen Chuyao hadn't expected him to be so perceptive. Inside that wardrobe was the ancient Nanjiang record that mentioned the ancient tree. Seeing Jing Haogu about to open the wardrobe door, Zhang Chuyao completely lost her composure. Wait a minute. This was the first time he had seen Zhang Chuyao so flustered. He deliberately feigned ignorance, asking, "My consort, why are you suddenly so nervous? Is there something inside that can't be seen?" "Your Highness, you jest. These are just some of my personal garments. The fabric is thin. It's best if your Highness doesn't look." Jing Haoji's lips curved into a slight smile. He posed a thought-provoking question. Is that so? But his hand, reaching for the wardrobe door, didn't stop. To protect her little secret, the princess consort stood firmly in front of the wardrobe, refusing to move. But the prince wouldn't let her off the hook. Using his height advantage, he lifted his consort's small face and moved her aside. Then he opened the wardrobe door and saw 2 books inside. Zhang Chuyao tried to snatch them back, but she was no match for Jing Haoge. Looking at the Nanjiang secret record and 7 yellow white grass in his hands, Jing Haoge was puzzled. Zhang Chuyao was so agitated just for these 2 books? He flipped open a page for a look. The first page described Nanjiang Qinwu. Jing Haoge was even more perplexed. Every day, you and Miss Shi are in the residence studying these bewitching things. Zhang Chuyao, both anxious and guilty, forced out. "So what if we are?" Jing Haoge suddenly stood up. "Miss Shi, what if you corrupt such a good girl? I'll keep these books for now. When you've thoroughly studied all the books in this room, come back to me for them." Zhang Chuyao became even more anxious. With a thud, she knelt down and grabbed him as he was about to leave. She then switched to a pitiful expression. "Your Highness, you can't do this. Those are my things. They're my lifeline. How can you take them away?" Jing Haoge paused, a glint in his eyes. He crouched down to Zhang Chuyao's level and hummed, "Shouldn't I be your lifeline, my consort?" Zhang Chuyao bristled. "I never said such a thing." Seeing her like this, Jing Haoge couldn't help but chuckle, then withdrew the playful expression on his face. In any case, I'll keep these things. When you come up with a proper reason, come back and ask for them." Zhang Chuyao fumed. "This man wants to keep my things again. They're mine. There's no more justifiable reason than that." Jing Haoge didn't bother arguing with her. He turned to Imperial Physician Zhao, who had been witnessing this whole exchange. "Imperial Physician, after your diagnosis just now, how is my consort's health?" Imperial Physician Zhao reported, "Her Highness is only experiencing common qi deficiency. There's nothing seriously wrong with her body." Zhang Chuyao pondered. Even Imperial Physician Zhao can't detect this poison. Zhen Tianhua is truly formidable. Jing Haoge didn't dwell on it further. After leaving some parting words, he left the room with the Imperial Physician. But even though the Imperial Physician said Zhang Chuyao was fine, he still felt there was something else going on. The next day, Zhang Chuyao, still fuming over her confiscated books, channeled her anger into her appetite. Just then, the old shopkeeper of the medical clinic brought new information. The substance reacting with the linlong grass in the tea tasting session was identified as baike incense. The scent of baike incense was very similar to the dragon incense in the imperial study, and this incense was produced in Huaixin, Zhang Tianhua's hometown. With this, everything connected. Jing Haoge had inhaled baike incense, disguised as dragon incense, in the imperial study. After returning home, she ate more mung bean cakes containing linlong grass. She fainted. At the time, everyone thought it was the pearl bomb sent by Zhang Tianhua that harmed her. But they didn't know it was the linlong grass inside that accidentally neutralized the baike incense. Zhang Tianhua likely doesn't know what linlong grass even is. He even sent pastries containing linlong grass. As for Jing Haoge, he must have discovered that linlong grass is the antidote, not the poison. That's why he took the initiative to apologize. Zhang Chuyao's feelings were inexplicably complicated at this moment. After all, he is Jing Haoge. How could he show his true feelings towards her? Lastly, there's one more thing. Imperial Physician Chun, who administered dragon incense to the emperor, has already... A key plot point from the original story is about to happen. A family surnamed Chun was robbed and killed by bandits while moving to the suburbs. Most likely, it was Zhang Tianhua who wouldn't let Imperial Physician Chen's family go. If this is true, Zhang Chuyao might be able to use this to gain merit in front of Jing Haoge and get her medical books back. To get back the ancient medical texts confiscated by the scheming male lead. The supporting female character is actually proactively handing her plot points. And this delivery method must be indirect and subtle, leaving no trace. Zhang Chuyao waited at the manor gates for Jing Haoge's return. As soon as Jing Hao Gu returned, he saw her standing there quietly. Why, concubine? Are you waiting for me? Zhen Chuyao smiled sweetly. Of course. I'm waiting for your highness. There's something I want to discuss with you. I heard that an imperial physician died in the palace. Is this true? Ying Hao Yi Nu did. This matter intrigued him. He wanted to see what this suddenly attentive concubine was up to. Zhen Chuyao feigned a complaint. Your highness coughed up blood for no reason, and your concubine was confined and neglected. I looked through medical books and learned that when Linlong grass and Baike incense interact, they cause a reversal of qi and blood. If this is truly related to Imperial Physician Shun, we must seek justice. Jing Hao Ji's tone was slightly indulgent. Imperial Physician Shun is already dead. What justice do you still seek, my concubine? Imperial Physician Shun is dead, but his family is still alive. Could they truly know nothing about this matter? Jing Hao Gu furrowed his brow in thought. Seeing him waver, Zhen Chuyao continued softly. I've been truly wrong this time. Your highness will surely stand up for me, won't you? Zhen Chuyao appeared outwardly demure, but inwardly she was growing impatient. I made it so clear. Please go arrest them. Otherwise, Zhen Tianhua will kill Chen's entire family soon. You have a point. This matter warrants further investigation. Zhen Chuyao was overjoyed. Thank you, your highness. She paused, then spoke again. So, your highness, will you return my books? See, I worked so hard to figure out the Baike incense. She revealed her true motives so quickly. Jing Hao Gu chuckled and grabbed her nervously fidgeting hand. You want a reward for such a small accomplishment? How about I test you with another random book? Zhen Chuyao was indignant. She turned away, puffed up with anger, and refused to argue with him any further. Your highness, you're so mean. I don't want to talk to you anymore. With that, she ran off. Jing Hao Gu watched her retreating figure, his smile deepening. He found her behavior utterly adorable. 2 hours later, the Dark Guards reported back. When they found the Chun family in the suburbs, assassins were just about to kill them. Fortunately, they arrived in time and saved the Chun family. They also presented 2 pieces of paper. One was proof of purchase for the Baike incense. The other was a silver note bearing the general's manor seal. Jing Hao Gu smiled. This was crucial political evidence. It seemed the general had resorted to murder because of this. The next day, after anxiously waiting all night, Zhen Chuyao finally received news from Jing Hao Gu. But the news wasn't what she had hoped for. Imperial physician Chen's son had been killed by the assassins. The rest of the family was exiled to the border for the crime of Imperial physician Chen's attempted murder. Zhen Chuyao had only wanted Jing Hao Gu to trace the Chun family back to Zhen Tianhua. She hadn't actually wanted to use the Chun family as scapegoats. She didn't expect Jing Hao Gu to be so ruthless. What if one day he discovered she was Zhen Tianhua's system? A tremendous fear rose from the depths of her heart. Her body trembled uncontrollably. She couldn't bear to think about it any longer. No, she couldn't stay in this manner any longer. She had to completely remove the poison from her body as soon as possible. Unbeknownst to her, on the other side, the guard said that the secondary consort seems displeased with this. Jing Hao Gu was completely dumbfounded. He ordered Imperial physician Chen's son dealt with because that young Master Chun was a wastrel, indulging in drinking, gambling, and prostitutes. As for exiling the rest of the Chun family, it was just an excuse to lower Zhen Tianhua's guard. However, suppressing Zhen Tianhua through this incident and solidifying his own interpretation was a good thing for him. This was all thanks to Zhen Chuyao's unintentional reminder last night. If he gets upset again, it wouldn't hurt to appease her again. He always thought women were troublesome, but when facing Zhen Chuyao, a woman even more troublesome than most, why did he repeatedly want to coax her? Jing Hao Gu still went to appease his wife. Not only did his tone soften, but he also brought gifts. But Zhen Chuyao didn't greet him with a smile as she usually did. Thinking about the books confiscated by Jing Hao Gu, she felt indignant. Those were her only lifeline. Your Highness doesn't want anything? If your Highness truly wishes to bestow a reward, please return the books to me. Consort, you have so many books in your room. Why do these 2 seem particularly important? The Secrets of Southern Xinjiang I borrowed from Miss Sher. The other, the Imperial Encyclopedia of Herbs, is a relic left by my mother. By this point, Zhen Chuyao's voice was choked with sobs. Seeing her weeping, Jing Hao Gu gently stroked her head. With an apologetic tone, he uttered, I truly didn't know. Now that your Highness knows, can you return the books to me? Jing Haoge didn't refuse that. I suppose I can. But your mother's relic is one thing. That secret of southern Xinjiang is filled with strange and unusual tales. You mustn't lead Miss Sure astray. As he spoke, his gaze settled on Zhun Chuyao's face again. As he looked, he uncomfortably averted his gaze. This woman, could she have already mastered the secrets of bewitchment? Not just Shi Wenshu. It seems even I can't help but soften towards her. But if Zhun Chuyao truly learned these methods for him, it must be because she cared deeply. Thinking of this, a hint of joy surfaced on Jing Haoji's face. He couldn't resist Zhun Chuyao's tearful eyes. He took out the 2 books and returned them to her. The moment she saw the books, Zhun Chuyao's pitiful demeanor vanished instantly. She lifted her skirt and rushed towards Jing Haoge, afraid he might change his mind. Zhun Chuyao opened her arms and snatched the books from Jing Haoji's hands. With a bright smile, she said, "Thank you, Your Highness," and turned to leave. Before Jing Haoge could react, she had disappeared from his sight. Honestly, she even forgot to take the fabric I gave her. Jing Haoge sighed in resignation. He was about to order a guard to deliver the fabric to the secondary consort, but changed his mind. "Wait, I'll take it myself." Soon, he sought out Zhun Chuyao again. Seeing him, Zhun Chuyao's heart was filled with suspicion. "Your Highness, you haven't changed your mind already, have you? I'm not that capricious. This fabric is of no use to me. Take it and make yourself some clothes." Zhun Chuyao was full of suspicion. Suddenly being so kind, what's your motive? Before she could figure it out, Jing Haoge pulled her, and she landed on his lap. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" Jing Haoge spoke firmly, his voice laced with a hint of jealousy. "Compared to books, I care more about my consort, but it seems my consort doesn't feel the same. Your Highness clearly dotes on the secondary consort, yet you're always so stubborn about it." He told himself he was only using her. However, seeing Zhun Chuyao wronged, Jing Haoge couldn't bear it. Not only did he severely punish Zhun Hanyin for provoking her, but the next day, he accompanied her to the general's manor for what she knew would be a difficult banquet. Jin Tianhua was also aware. Yesterday's invitation clearly stated that the prince and princess consort of Yaomu would attend the trial. Today, the 2 of them came to the general's mansion for a banquet. The entire garden, however, only had 3 seats. The guests were only Jing Haoge and Zhun Chuyao. Zhun Tianhua enthusiastically invited the prince to taste his hometown's fine wine. Zhun Xiao's heart instantly skipped a beat. The hunter-bird's fragrance that had previously caused Jing Haoge to vomit blood came from Zhun Tianhua's hometown. Who knew what he had put in this wine? But at this moment, Jing Haoge seemed to have no guard up. Seeing him reach out to pick up the wine cup, Zhun Chuyao quickly stopped her father. "How can we have the guest drinking as soon as he arrives? Your Highness is busy with official duties every day. It would be better to let His Highness experience the mansion's 5G entertainment." Jing Haoge was taken aback. Could it be that she was trying to protect me? The look in Zhun Tianhua's eyes towards Zhun Chuyao instantly turned cold. "Your Highness has seen plenty of song and dance. I'm afraid he wouldn't appreciate the dancers in the general's mansion." These words, strangely, made Jing Haoge anxious. He wasn't someone who indulged in such entertainment. It wouldn't be good if Zhun Chuyao misunderstood. The general jests. When have I ever indulged in song and dance? Zhun Chuyao pretended not to understand her father's warning and continued to change the subject. She held on to Jing Haoji's arm with a shy expression. "My daughter spends every day whispering sweet nothings with His Highness. Whether he has watched the dancers or not, my daughter knows best. However, father, you should still let him have a look." Hearing the words, whispering sweet nothings, Jing Haoge felt a surge of annoyance. He was the one whispering sweet nothings with Shi Wenshu. Zhun Chuyao didn't cling to him at all, but at least she was trying to help him. So he played along. "My beloved consort is right." Zhun Tianhua, suppressing his anger, signaled for the dancers to begin their performance. During the performance, he brought up the matter of imperial physician Shun, praising Jing Haoji's acting skills while probing how he knew there was a problem with the eunuch by the emperor's side. Zhun Chuyao paid no attention to their conversation, only concerned about what to do with the wine. Seeing Zhun Tianhua raise his wine cup again in invitation, Jing Haoge frowned. Just as he was about to find a reason to decline, Zhun Chuyao, beside him, took his wine cup. "Father, you don't know, but His Highness hasn't been feeling well lately and shouldn't drink. Allow me to drink in his stead." With these words, under Jing Haoji's astonished gaze, she raised the cup and drank it all. Zhen Xiao's action even surprised herself. Her head hadn't had time to think before her hand acted. It wasn't until the cool wine slipped down her throat that she felt a surge of fear. Before she could figure anything out, she felt a sudden, choking sensation. Could Jin Tianhua really have poisoned the wine? Seeing her clutching her throat in discomfort, Jing Hao Ji's composure finally broke. Chu Yao, are you all right? Seeing her teary-eyed appearance, Jing Hao Ji's heart was in turmoil. Could this woman truly love him this much? He tightened his grip on Zhen Qiao's hand and turned to glare furiously at Jin Tianhua. What's wrong with this wine? Just because his wife choked on a sip of wine, the prince glared at his father-in-law. Hearing Jing Hao Gu repeatedly question Zhen Tianhua about the wine, Zhen Qiao hurriedly shook her head. Your Highness, I'm fine. The wine was too strong, and I accidentally choked. Her face flushed crimson, regretting her impulsiveness. She had shielded Jing Hao Gu without a second thought. After a moment, she realized the wine wasn't poisoned and couldn't have been. No matter how muddled Jin Tianhua was, he wouldn't actually poison the prince. Jing Hao Gu looked at her leaning against him and gently patted her back to help her catch her breath. He found Zhen Chuyao increasingly difficult to understand. She was so easily moved to tears and seemed so fragile. Yet just now, she had been exceptionally resolute. Looking again at Zhen Chuyao's reddened eyes, a long-lost sense of tranquility rose in Jing Hao Ji's heart. After a long while, in front of Jin Tianhua, Jing Hao Gu pretended to complain, my beloved consort, really. Even if I'm unwell, I'm still a man. There's no need for you to drink in my place. Zhen Chuyao immediately puffed up her cheeks. She had meant well, after all, but she didn't dare show her resentment too obviously, so she lifted her skirt and excused herself. Wandering aimlessly through the general's mansion, she suddenly heard Zhen Hanyan's voice from behind. Zhen Hanyan, surprisingly, called her sister, appearing to have come to apologize. Zhen Chuyao, however, remained guarded. What do you want? Just say it. Zhen Hanyan's expression immediately changed. His Highness's visit to the mansion today is a great opportunity. If elder sister can help me achieve success with His Highness, and I become the official wife in the future, I naturally won't treat you poorly. Zhen Chuyao inwardly found it amusing that you think I'll believe you. Elder sister, are you still unclear about your own position? I don't need you to believe me. I'm here to inform you. This is father's intention. If you don't agree, you won't even be able to remain a concubine. Zhen Xiao's expression also turned cold. They want to scheme against Jing Hao Gu. But even knowing the plot, she couldn't defy Zhen Tianhua within the general's manor. However, she didn't want any relationship to develop between Jing Hao Gu and Zhen Hanyan. Moreover, she believed Jing Hao Gu definitely wouldn't be interested in Zhen Hanyan. Zhen Chuyao suppressed her anger and tentatively agreed to the matter. She walked towards Jing Hao Ji's resting room and pushed open the door. She saw Jing Hao go on the bed, his face flushed, his expression dazed. He seemed to be truly drunk. Zhen Chuyao suddenly felt anxious. How could he be drunk like this? What would happen when Zhen Hanyan arrived? Sure enough, footsteps came from the doorway. Zhen Hanyan walked in with a smile. Elder sister, I brought some sobering soup for His Highness, but I forgot to bring a spoon. Could you go get one for me? Zhen Chuyao was just about to find a reason to refuse when an old servant from the general's manor approached. My lady, the general requests your presence. These two were clearly doing this on purpose. Zhen Chuyao had no choice but to get up and leave. Before leaving, she deliberately pinched Jing Hao Ji's palm, hoping he would wake up quickly. As soon as Zhen Chuyao left the room, Zhen Hanyan smugly closed the door. Zhen Chuyao cursed inwardly. If he really succeeded, her life would be over. And for some reason, her heart felt heavy with anxiety. The prince was clearly drunk unconscious, yet the secondary consort had to leave his side. All because her scheming younger sister wanted to take advantage of the situation, secure the prince, and become the official wife. She deliberately waited until the prince was drunk to approach. Zhen Chuyao felt extremely uneasy. But at this moment, trapped by the general's manor's arrangements, even a glance back would be stopped by the old servant. However, just as she was at her wit's end, a scream suddenly came from the room. Looking back, Zhen Hanyan was thrown out of the room. Landing on the ground, a bewildered Zhen Hanyan looked up, only to see her elder sister, whom she had just mocked, standing before her. Zhen Chuyao sneered, "Oh, you dare to ridicule me." Then, with a bang, the door was flung open. Jing Hao Gu stumbled out. Zhen Shuyao lifted her skirt and ran towards him. But Jing Haoge, still seemingly drunk, stared at Zhen Shuyao's face, unable to look away. Hey, this beauty is much prettier. He leaned towards her as he spoke. Beautiful beauty. Come back to the manor with me and be my bride, all right? Seeing Jing Haoge about to kiss her, Zhen Shuyao instinctively raised her hand to cover his mouth. That we have an audience. Someone help His Highness. He's drunk. The guards took 2 steps forward. Jing Haoge became displeased. Don't stop me. Help me take this beauty back to the manor. The guards muttered a reminder. Your Highness, this is your secondary consort. Jing Haoge drunkenly pinched Zhen Shuyao's face. I have such a beautiful secondary consort. But if my secondary consort is this beautiful, why did that ugly woman just now say she wanted to be my official wife? He pointed at Zhen Hanyan on the ground. Hearing the words, ugly woman, Zhen Hanyan's face instantly darkened. Zhen Shuyao couldn't help but smile. Things having reached this point, it gave her a legitimate reason to return to the manor. Zhen Shuyao generously stated, His Highness is drunk and unintentionally offended my younger sister. I believe Father, in his magnanimity, won't blame him. Considering His Highness is drunk unconscious, it's best to return to the manor. Zhen Shuyao pulled Jing Haoge's arm and walked out of the general's manor. At this moment, she felt inexplicably proud. As soon as they boarded the carriage, Jing Haoge's drunken enthusiasm vanished. He didn't spare Zhen Shuyao another glance and impatiently ordered the driver, Let's go. Zhen Shuyao froze, then realized he was probably angry about Zhen Hanyan. She then mischievously recalled how he had just complimented her looks. Her mood brightened considerably, unaware that Jing Haoge, sitting opposite her, was waiting for her to explain. Seeing her tilting her head and smiling foolishly, he was about to explode. How could he trust this woman to have Zhen Hanyan around him for so long? And now she seemed completely oblivious. Even after they returned to the manor, Zhen Shuyao remained unaware of Jing Haoge's displeasure. She was still basking in the afterglow of his compliment. Hugging her blanket, she slept soundly, unaware that the prince outside her door was fuming. Sleeping so peacefully this early, it seemed she really didn't think she'd done anything wrong. The prince sulked because the princess consort had seemingly given him over to her sister. But the princess consort was completely unaware of his feelings. She fell into a deep sleep the moment her head hit the pillow. The next day, when Zhen Shuyao brought a personally made soup to visit Jing Haoge, he refused to see her. Zhen Shuyao belatedly realized something was amiss. Does he not want to see me? On the other side of the door, Jing Haoge was holding back his anger, waiting for her next words. Zhen Shuyao thought, since the soup was already made, she might as well deliver it. So she specifically emphasized, this is lotus seed soup personally made by Miss Shi. Have his servants warm it up for His Highness when he's hungry. Zhen Shuyao assumed Jing Haoge clearly didn't want to see her, so she offered him a way out. But her words only angered him further. Jing Haoge muttered to himself, Am I an object? You give me to whoever you want. Giving me to Zhen Hanyan yesterday wasn't enough, and now you're currying favor with Shi Wenshu today? Rejected, Zhen Shuyao returned to her room. She assumed Jing Haoge's anger would subside soon. Unexpectedly, Jing Haoge refused to see her for several days. However, that night, someone finally couldn't hold back. Jing Haoge, after learning from the maid that the princess consort was asleep, slipped into Zhen Shuyao's room under the cover of night. Moonlight filtered through the window paper, casting a cool glow on the sleeping Zhen Shuyao. Jing Haoge gazed at her silently, emotions swirling in his eyes. He unconsciously leaned closer, as if trying to find the hidden questions in his heart within her face. He wanted to reach out and touch her, but ultimately restrained himself. He simply adjusted Zhen Shuyao's blanket, turned around, and after a long while, silently left her room. He didn't know that after he left, the seemingly sleeping Zhen Shuyao slowly opened her eyes. This man was truly strange, refusing to see her during the day, yet sneaking into her room in the middle of the night. It was incredibly bizarre. At this moment, Zhen Shuyao had only one thought. For Shi Wenshu's safety, it was best to have her return to the Duke's mansion. Early the next morning, Jing Haoge, who hadn't seen Zhen Shuyao come looking for him, wondered, where's the princess consort? A servant reported, Her Highness escorted Miss Shi back to her mansion this morning. Hearing this, Jing Haoge immediately lost his appetite. He was puzzled. Because the prince had been sullen lately, and indifferent towards the princess consort, she decided to go out and find some amusement. Jing Haoge could stay away from the manor, and so could she. Zhen Chuyao strolled through the bustling streets with her maid, unaware that the prince was currently drowning his sorrows in alcohol. His accompanying cousin, Zhan Han Shi, had never seen his cousin drink like this. Although he didn't know why his cousin was so upset, Zhan Han Shi felt that the only person who could console him was Zhen Chuyao. Zhan Han Shi personally took on the role of peacemaker between the couple, hurrying back to the manor. After finally arriving at the Moon Manor, he was informed by the steward that the princess consort had gone out and hadn't returned. Zhan Han Shi figured that since his sister-in-law wasn't at the manor, she must have gone to see Shi Wenshu. He hurried back to the duke's mansion, only to find her gone again. Zhan Han Shi was utterly frustrated. It wasn't until sunset that Zhen Chuyao finally returned to the manor. The head steward rushed to inform her, "His Highness has had too much to drink. My lady, please go to the study and see him." Zhen Chuyao clearly didn't believe Jing Haoge was actually drunk. He had pretended last time at the general's mansion, seeing the secondary consort's indifference. Steward Wang could only sigh and withdraw. Zhen Chuyao remained stunned for a good while. Though annoyed, she still couldn't help but worry. She ordered her maid to prepare the ingredients for a sobering-up remedy, intending to make Jing Haoge some sobering-up soup. After finishing the soup and bringing it to the study, she was met by Zhan Han Shi, who pointed at her nose and demanded, "You silly girl, you finally came back. What on earth did you do to make cousin so angry? He's such a calm person, but today he's completely drunk." Zhen Chuyao was momentarily taken aback. "Me? Make him angry? Do you know how long it's been since I've even spoken to him?" Zhan Hanshi wanted to say more, but Zhen Chuyao suddenly fell silent. A sharp cramp suddenly hit her abdomen, leaving her gasping for breath. The next moment, everything went black, and she fainted right in front of Zhan Hanshi. When Zhen Chuyao woke up again, she opened her eyes to see Shi Wenshu sitting by her bedside. "Why are you suddenly here?" Shi Wenshu was upset that she hadn't confided in her friend. Zhan Hanshi had suddenly come to the Imperial Academy earlier, and she was worried. So she'd used the pretense of visiting the prince to come to the manor. Her true intention, of course, was her concern for Zhen Chuyao. Shi Wenshu lowered her voice. "Thank goodness you're all right. It's just your period." Zhen Chuyao blushed. She'd actually caused such a commotion just because of her period. She was mortified. Just as she was feeling embarrassed, a maid announced the arrival of the imperial physician. Zhen Chuyao exclaimed, No, don't let the imperial physician in." Shi Wenshu, understanding Zhen Chuyao's embarrassment, stood up and stopped the imperial physician Zhan Hanshi had brought. "Her Highness is fine. Please ask the imperial physician to return." Zhan Hanshi was frantic. If something were to truly happen to Zhen Chuyao, his cousin would skin him alive. When he woke up, the sister-in-law's face is completely pale. How could she be fine? "Get out of the way." Just as he finished speaking, there was a loud bang from the doorway. The two stared in surprise. Jing Haoge, still smelling of alcohol, appeared. His voice was filled with urgency. "What happened?" "She's sick. Why aren't you letting the imperial physician see her?" The previously silent prince and his wife had finally found their voices. The reconciled couple were truly made of iron. Upon learning of Zhen Chuyao's fainting, Jing Haoge instantly sobered up. He rushed to her bedside, only to learn that the secondary consort was not seriously ill, but simply experiencing her monthly period. Jing Haoge relaxed, turning his head and asking softly, "Are you in a lot of pain? I'll go and prepare some medicine according to a pain-relieving recipe I know." Zhen Chuyao was incredibly embarrassed. In broad daylight, everyone was watching her lie in bed with period cramps. She peeked through her fingers at the man beside her bed, thinking that since her face was already lost, there was nothing left to lose. With a hint of Vaychek, she spoke, "Your Highness, why have you been ignoring me these past few days? Did I do something wrong?" Jing Haoge paused for a moment before asking back, somewhat uneasily, at the general's mansion. "You knew Zhen Hanyan had ill intentions. So why did you leave her alone in my room?" Zhen Chuyao hadn't realized he was actually this angry about it. With a stubbornness tinged with a subtle grievance, she replied, "Your Highness, didn't you also test me with the position of primary consort before? I wasn't reassured either, so I allowed it to happen. If your Highness truly had no other intentions, you naturally wouldn't have accepted my sister." Jing Haoge turned his head and looked at Zhen Chuyao again. After a long silence, a myriad of emotions culminated in a soft sigh. All right, let's not have this happen again. Surprise flickered in Zhang Chuyao's eyes. Knowing his anger had subsided, she continued to coax him, wrapping her arms around his neck and acting spoiled. Your Highness, you've scared me to death these past few days. You can't ignore me for so long again. He reached out and embraced her, immediately noticing how cold her hands were. Worried she was chilled, he wanted her to get back under the covers. But Zhang Chuyao refused to cooperate, holding him tighter. I won't sleep until your Highness promises me. Only when Jing Haogu softly agreed did Zhang Chuyao smile brightly, as if all the previous unpleasantness had vanished with that single word. Jing Haogu, a mixture of flustered and resigned, gently stroked Zhang Chuyao's head. All right, go to sleep. After soothing Zhang Chuyao to sleep, Jing Haogu carefully got up and strode towards the study, where he ran into the servant girl Zhang Chuyao had previously arranged to bring him the sobering-up soup. She felt instantly refreshed. The gloom in her heart swept away. Picking up the bowl of sobering soup, she drank it all in one gulp. He really did still care for her. Not long after, the imperial physician who had examined Zhang Chuyao earlier entered the room to report. After today's examination, this official has discovered something unusual about Her Highness the Secondary Consort's health. However, I require 10 days to consult medical texts before I can be certain. Jing Haoji's heart was filled with worry. It seemed Zhang Chuyao still held secrets he didn't know. They were originally a superficial couple bound by mutual suspicion, but now, through a series of tests, their hearts had softened towards each other. Both clearly cared for the other, yet one was proud and the other obtuse. It was truly exasperating to watch. The day after Jing Haogu and Zhang Chuyao reconciled, he became sullen again. Seeing Zhang Chuyao chatting and laughing with Shi Wenshu and Zhang Hanqi, even using his money to buy them gifts, completely ignoring him in the study, Jing Haoji's face darkened. Zhang Hanqi immediately understood and exchanged a knowing glance with Shi Wenshu. It was time for them to leave. After the two left, Jing Haogu remained sullen and refused to speak. Everyone else left with gifts, yet he received nothing. Zhang Chuyao opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but couldn't quite grasp his thoughts. Jing Haogu stood before her for a long time, but didn't hear the words he wanted, growing increasingly perplexed. He simply wanted what everyone else had. Why didn't Zhang Chuyao understand? He had to make her see today. So, Jing Haogu suddenly stood up and, with his back to Zhang Chuyao, left a sentence. My concubine, the bill for the gifts you prepared for others, you can handle them yourself. Zhang Chuyao was immediately unhappy. She was a lowly, unfavored secondary consort. Where'd she get the money? Jing Haogu left after saying those words, still sulking. He returned to his study and waited until nightfall. He didn't wait for Zhang Chuyao to understand, but instead received another unexpected piece of news. The second miss of the general's mansion had come to visit the secondary consort and was staying at the residence after receiving permission. Ever since her failed attempt to seduce Jing Haogu at the general's mansion, Zhang Hanyan had held a grudge. Her late-night visit made her intentions clear. To prevent Jing Haogu from valuing Zhang Hanyan, Zhang Chuyao rushed into his room while he was still bathing and dressing, acting coquettishly. Your Highness, do you know what day it is tomorrow? Jing Haogu calculated and knew it was July 7th, Qixi Festival, but pretended not to know. Zhang Chuyao knew he was lying, but didn't expose him. Your Highness, this is my first Qixi Festival since marrying you. It's the day the cowherd and weaver girl meet on the Magpie Bridge. Lovers release sky lanterns together to make wishes. Take me to see them, Your Highness. Zhang Chuyao's voice was soft and sweet. Jing Haogu finally relented. The couple walked along the bustling street. Lanterns twinkled, illuminating the entire street. Zhang Chuyao's mood brightened, and she pulled Jing Haogu toward the market like a child. Your Highness, I see a rabbit lantern. Shall we buy one? At this moment, Jing Haogu suddenly felt like he had never seen her with such a genuine smile. Seeing him stunned, Zhang Chuyao reached out her hand towards his money pouch. Jing Haogu, without thinking, took out his purse, his eyes filled with an affection he hadn't realized he possessed. Zhang Chuyao bought things all the way down the street. Suddenly, she turned around with a smile and told Jing Haogu to wait for her. Before he could reply, she had disappeared into the crowd. Jing Haoge waited for a long time, but she didn't reappear. His heart sank. Had she taken the opportunity to run away? His heart chilled, and he was about to order his guards to find her when a familiar voice stopped him. "Your Highness, try this jujube cake. Is it good?" Jing Haoge snapped back to his senses, lowering his head and taking a bite of the cake in her hand. "How is it? Sweet." Jing Haoge didn't answer, but silently took her hand and ate the remaining half of the cake. "Sweet, very sweet." At that moment, fireworks exploded in the night sky. Zhen Shuyao looked up excitedly. "Your Highness, fireworks." Jing Haoge looked at the fireworks in the sky. She lowered her head again, gazing intently at the person before her. At this moment, he seemed even more captivating than fireworks. He lowered his head, unable to help himself. Zhen Shuyao, however, suddenly spoke with anticipation. "Your Highness, I've accompanied you for the entire evening. Wouldn't you please settle the previous bill for me?" The prince clearly cared deeply for his consort, but insisted on feigning indifference. Last night, in their shared quarters, amidst the intimacy of husband and wife, Jing Haoge, because of Zhen Shuyao's request to settle the bill, left her on the street. Zhen Shuyao felt wronged. She had painstakingly cultivated a sweet atmosphere, and Jing Haoge was still able to refuse. As a result, the next day, unable to settle her debts, she had to approach the pharmacy manager to borrow money. The old manager thought he had misheard that lady, you jest. This pharmacy was originally left to you by your mother. After several years of operation, we certainly have tens of thousands of taels of silver. Just tell me how much you need, my lady. Zhen Shuyao instantly felt emboldened. It turned out she was actually wealthy. Arriving at the shop where she had incurred the debt, silver note in hand, she was about to flaunt her newfound wealth, but the shop assistant told her, "Your bill was settled this morning." Zhen Shuyao was surprised and anxious. How could it have already been settled? On her way back to the residence, she couldn't help but silently curse him for his duplicity. Yet, her heart felt as sweet as honey. She truly couldn't understand. Jing Haoge was clearly willing to settle the bill for her, but he insisted on playing the villain in front of her. She didn't know what his motive was. When Zhen Shuyao returned to the residence, Jing Haoge was practicing swordsmanship in the courtyard. Seeing her walking towards him holding a box, he casually asked, "What did you buy today?" Zhen Shuyao strode up to him, her purpose clear. "Your Highness, honestly, you already settled the bill for me. Why did you have to pretend to be so cold and indifferent? You made me worry for nothing. If you do this again, I won't talk to you." Jing Haoge unnaturally turned his head away, changing the subject. "What did you bring?" "Glutinous rice cakes. I saw you enjoyed them last time, so I bought some." Jing Haoge paused slightly. "I remember the pastries you made before were also very delicious." Zhen Shuyao froze. "The pastries before? Your Highness, are you referring to the mung bean cakes that made you vomit blood last time?" Zhen Shuyao was embarrassed. Thinking of that experience, she still felt a little apprehensive. "Your Highness, you're just humoring me, right? In that situation, how could you possibly remember the taste of the pastries?" Jing Haoge was sincere. She heard the self-deprecation in his voice. Looking at her flustered expression, he relented. "It was my fault for handling the situation poorly last time. From now on, I'll eat anything you make." Zhen Shuyao was quite surprised. He was actually sincerely apologizing to her. After a moment of thought, a mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. "Your Highness, is that a promise?" "I promise. I won't go back on my word." Having received such a definite answer, the next day, Zhen Shuyao appeared before him with a plate of dark, almost black pastries. Jing Haoge, who had just promised not to regret his words, instantly felt a pang of regret. Love, what is this you've made?" "Your Highness, these are chestnut cakes I made myself. You said you would eat anything I made." Jing Haoge looked at the black pastries and, summoning his courage, put one into his mouth. He had braced himself for the worst. The anticipated unpleasant taste, however, did not materialize. These unassuming chestnut cakes were surprisingly delicious. Zhen Shuyao, observing Jing Haoge's complex expression throughout, felt particularly pleased. "Your Highness, you must have thought I would take this opportunity to get revenge on you, didn't you?" "See, I knew you always suspect me." Jing Haoge, having been tricked, wasn't angry. Love, you deliberately made these misleading pastries just to see me make a fool of myself, didn't you? Now that I've fallen for your trick, are you happy?" he said, affectionately pinching Zhen Shuyao's nose. This made her, who had been exposed, feel a little guilty. "Your Highness, Honestly, even chestnut cakes can't shut you up. Just how childish was the prince of the entire Qing dynasty in front of his consort? In order to receive a carefully prepared birthday gift from his consort and experience the feeling of being pampered, he actually asked his cousin to inform his wife in advance. Jing Haogu, using the pretense of checking on Zhang Hanqi's progress, summoned Zhang Hanqi and deliberately emphasized, "My birthday is approaching. Your cousin-in-law might forget. Since you're often in her presence, you can conveniently remind her. But cousin, you see cousin-in-law every day. Why don't you say it yourself?" Faced with his clueless younger cousin, Jing Haogu frowned. "Why do you have so many questions? Why don't you just move into the study? That way, I can guide you anytime." Hearing this, Zhang Hanqi dared not ask any more questions. Yes, I'll go tell sister-in-law right away." Zhang Hanqi, silenced and dismissed, ran off. Meanwhile, Jing Haogu in his room couldn't stop recalling Zhang Xuyao's expression when she was preparing a gift for him. Soon, Zhang Hanqi arrived in front of Zhang Xuyao and formally reported, "Cousin's birthday is approaching. He told you not to forget to prepare a gift for him." Zhang Xuyao, who was drinking water, choked. "Can he really just say that so directly?" She asked rhetorically, "Does he think it's reasonable to just ask for a gift?" She felt a pang of distress. Could it be that my little savings, still warm in my hands, are about to be drained? With a serious expression, she stood up and picked up a brush and paper. "Deliver this letter to His Highness." Zhang Hanqi felt that this couple was truly baffling, something that could be resolved with a simple conversation. They insisted on making him run around in the middle. Jing Haogu unfolded the note. On it, written in a childish scrawl, were the words, "My purse is light, and I am unable to prepare a gift worthy of Your Highness. If Your Highness insists on one, you must first loosen your grip." Jing Haogu raised an eyebrow, a subtle glint flashing in his eyes. He picked up his brush and wrote back, "A gift's value isn't in its price, but in the sentiment behind it." Zhang Xuyao shook her head that he's really stingy. Still puzzling over the birthday gift, someone from the general's manor arrived again. And this time, they brought a carriage full of beautiful women. When Zhang Xuyao arrived at the gate, she saw Zhen Hanyan at the head of the group with a smug look on her face. "Sister, father knows His Highness's birthday is approaching. Hearing that His Highness enjoys song and dance, he specially sent this token of appreciation. I'm sure sister won't refuse, right?" Zhen Hanyan naively believed that as long as these carefully selected beauties stayed by Jing Haoji's side, Zhang Xuyao would eventually be replaced. Zhang Xuyao naturally couldn't directly refuse the general's manners gestured out of course. "I won't refuse father's kindness." Zhang Xuyao smiled brightly. But inwardly, she thought Jing Haogu wouldn't accept these spies sent by Zhen Tianhua. However, when she brought the beauties to Jing Haogu, expecting him to reject them outright, Jing Haoji's expression became unreadable. He left her hanging for a long time, before finally saying, "My dear consort is truly generous. You can handle this yourself." Zhen Xuyao was completely stunned. How did this hot potato end up in her hands? Moreover, Jing Haogu seemed angry again. Was it because Zhen Tianhua had sent these women to provoke him? Or is it something else? The prince finally learned the secret about his consort from the imperial physician. It turned out she was afflicted with a little-known ancient poison from southern Jiang. This poison only acted up during a woman's menstruation. Without the antidote, she would die in excruciating pain. Jing Haoji's brows furrowed. He recalled Zhang Xuyao secretly searching for medical texts these past few days. He understood there must be something more behind this poisoning. Unfortunately, the imperial physician hadn't yet found a way to counteract it. Thinking of Zhang Xuyao suffering such a cruel fate, Jing Haogu was furious. If he found the person behind this, he would make them experience the same agonizing death. He couldn't wait any longer and rushed to Zhang Xuyao's courtyard. He found her leisurely playing chess. Zhen Xuyao was puzzled. Why was he here again after being so angry yesterday? Jing Haogu walked directly to Zhen Xuyao. "Have Zhang Hanqi and Shi Wenshu leave. I need to speak with Xuyao alone." Hearing him use her given name, Zhen Xuyao felt even more confused. Does Her Highness need something? Jing Haogu suddenly stopped that I was wrong yesterday. I misunderstood you. I apologize. Zhen Xuyao felt like the sun had risen in the west. He was actually apologizing, Not receiving an immediate reply, Jing Haoge turned around awkwardly, giving Zhen Chuyao the perfect opportunity. Instantly, her eyes filled with a semblance of sorrow. Does your highness think I truly wanted to accept those women my father sent? I, too, wish to have your highness's favor all to myself. But a wife's duty is to obey. How could I dare defy him? I thought your highness would understand my predicament. Ying Hao Yi Sayid. She was acting again. He didn't argue with her, instead reaching out and embracing her from behind. Since you know I favor you, you should be more confident. The general is also your father. You have my favor, so he won't make things difficult for you over such a small matter. Hearing this, Zhen Chuyao felt a chill in her heart. She wanted to test his relationship with Zhen Tianhua. She originally thought Jing Haoge was sincerely apologizing this time, but in the end, he had another motive. No longer wanting to continue this topic, she changed the subject. What about the 5 beauties father sent? Has your highness taken a liking to any of them? She deliberately laced her words with a hint of jealousy, pleasing Jing Haoge. He smiled contentedly, lifting the corner of his mouth. Playing with Zhen Chuyao's hair in my eyes, they can't even compare to a single strand of my beloved consort's hair. Zhen Chuyao's heart fluttered nervously. A man's mouth, a deceitful ghost. This man was clearly trying to test her just a moment ago. She harbored her suspicions, but maintained a shy expression on her face. Softly, she called out, "Your Highness," which stirred Jing Haoge's heart. My beloved consort's charm is unparalleled. Since Zhen Chuyao had become the prince's consort and experienced this unique pampering, she no longer had any other concerns. She directly arranged for the beauties sent by the general's manor to do hard labor. Soon, they couldn't bear it and asked to leave the manor. Sherwin Shu, though impressed by Zhen Chuyao's ruthless methods, was still somewhat worried. Because of this matter, rumors spread throughout the capital that the Mu prince was selecting concubines arbitrarily. There was no need to guess. Those words must have come from the general's manor. This showed that Zhen Tianhua was being merciless this time. His own daughter was the Mu prince's consort, yet he was openly arranging beauties for his son-in-law. He even had his younger daughter shamelessly stay at the Mu prince's manor. If nothing unexpected happened, their next move would be to spread rumors that Zhen Hanyan was the one truly in love with Jing Haoge, and that they had already consummated their relationship. The more Zhen Chuyao thought about it, the angrier she became. A nameless fire surged in her heart. She absolutely could not let Zhen Hanyan stay in the manor. She rushed towards the guest rooms, but was stopped halfway by a servant girl. "The Princess Royal is here." Zhen Chuyao's heart pounded. The Princess Royal coming at this time? Could it be that she had also believed the rumors outside? With this thought in mind, she went to the front hall. Upon entering, she saw Zhen Hanyan already there. The war between the women was about to begin. Zhen Hanyan smugly believed that as long as they relied on their carefully crafted illusion of being favored, they could make the Princess Royal, who usually disdained such battles, lose patience with Zhen Chuyao. However, things unfolded completely differently than she expected. Sherwin Shu stepped forward and accused her. "You are still unmarried. How can you be so indiscreet, gossiping about another couple?" Even the Princess Royal, who usually seemed at odds with Zhen Chuyao, spoke up for her. Zhen Hanyan tried to argue using other excuses, but the Princess Royal's threatening glare silenced her completely. "Although you are the general's daughter, the internal affairs of this manor are not your concern." At this moment, the unease in Zhen Chuyao's heart vanished. Having someone backing her up felt incredibly satisfying. Zhen Hanyan left the manor dejectedly. The Princess Royal, however, wasn't finished. Although she trusted Zhen Chuyao, there were some things she was dissatisfied with. "You've been married into the manor for a while now, but why is there still no sign of pregnancy?" Zhen Chuyao blushed. No matter how capable she was, she couldn't reproduce asexually. She could only mumble, "Perhaps it's just not time yet." As soon as Jing Haoge finished court, he rushed to Zhen Chuyao's courtyard, fearing the Princess Royal had believed the outside rumors and mistreated her. However, at this moment, Zhen Chuyao was leisurely watering the flowers. It seemed she hadn't suffered any grievances. Jing Haoge finally relaxed. He then brought up another matter that had been on his mind. "That I heard from Han Shi that my birthday is approaching. Have you made any preparations?" Zhen Chuyao felt he was being disingenuous. It was clearly him who had sent Zhang Hanqi to specifically remind her about it. But to appease Jing Haoge, she immediately put on a bright smile. "This is the first birthday I'll be celebrating with your highness. Naturally, I must prepare well. The gift I'm preparing for your highness will definitely be unique." Jing Haoge leaned in slightly, trying to suppress his joy. "Well, that's more like it. Then I'll look forward to the unique gift from my beloved consort." The prince, who usually slept in his study, came to Zhan Chuyao's courtyard tonight. Seeing Jing Haoge about to enter the room, Zhan Chuyao instinctively reached out to stop him. "Your highness cannot go in." "My beloved concubine, what is this about?" Jing Haoge frowned. "Am I now so nearsighted that I cannot even enter a room?" Zhan Chuyao feigned panic. "I am preparing a surprise for your highness. If your highness goes in now, it won't be a surprise on your birthday." Although these words sounded sincere, Zhan Chuyao felt somewhat guilty. It wasn't entirely for the surprise. It was just that, late at night like this, if Jing Haoge entered the room, she would inevitably have to deal with him. Recalling the last time she teased him, she still felt apprehensive. However, these words did soften Jing Haoge's expression. He no longer insisted on entering the room. Standing at the doorway, he asked, "Is my beloved concubine feeling better?" "Thank you for your concern, your highness. I am well." Her standard reply seemed to carry a hint of dismissal. Jing Haoge, however, was unwilling to leave just yet. "You fainted from pain during your period and even called for the imperial physician. I don't think your health is very good. I'm somewhat different from other women. I believe I will gradually get better." Zhan Chuyao felt guilty, afraid that he might discover something. Could imperial physician Zhao possibly detect the ancient poison in her body? She glanced furtively at Jing Haoge, but she saw him suddenly drop his previous casual demeanor. Zhan Chuyao lowered her head. She asked cautiously, "Your highness is so concerned about a woman's matters. Are you worried that I won't be able to bear children in the future?" Jing Haoge sighed slightly. She was still unwilling to tell the truth. "My beloved concubine, don't overthink it. I'm just concerned about you. And indeed, you alone cannot have children." Zhan Chuyao was stunned. Something wasn't right. This man seemed a little too enthusiastic lately. Jing Haoge leaned towards Zhan Chuyao, who was now blushing to the tips of her ears, and pulled her into his embrace. The corners of his mouth curled upwards. He held her for a long moment before finally releasing her. "I'll return to my study then. I truly look forward to my beloved concubine surprise." Meanwhile, Zhang Hanqi, in an attempt to please his cousin, had been repeatedly trying to curry favor with his cousin's wife. Unexpectedly, this backfired, greatly displeasing Jing Haoge, who was quite the jealous type. He had intended to use the pretense of sparring to teach the young whippersnapper a lesson, but his naive younger cousin looked at him expectantly. His cousin rarely agreed to spar with him. This must be because his wife had put in a good word for him. Half an hour later, Zhang Hanqi, beaten black and blue, lay on his bed feeling sorry for himself. Shi Wenshu, hearing of this, felt sympathy and brought him medicine to treat his injuries. But the simple-minded Zhang Hanqi still didn't understand the reason that it must be because I haven't been close enough to my cousin's wife, and he's unhappy about it. Shi Wenshu knew he was hopeless. The next day, she sought out Zhan Chuyao for help, asking her to plead with the prince on behalf of the bruised and swollen Zhang Hanqi. Although Zhan Chuyao didn't understand the conflict between the two, she agreed to Shi Wenshu's request. Carrying a bowl of lotus seed soup, she arrived at Jing Haoge's study. A soft "Your Highness" instantly brightened the mood of Jing Haoge, who was buried in his official documents. "What brings my beloved concubine here?" Zhan Chuyao was quite direct. "I've come to plead for Zhang Hanqi." He was the decisive Mu Prince. Yet he acted so aggrieved in front of his secondary consort over a 1-centimeter cut on his hand. That night, Jing Haoge was delighted to see Zhan Chuyao appear in his study. However, she had come to plead for Zhang Hanqi. The flicker of joy Jing Haoge had felt vanished instantly. "And why beloved concubine has come to plead for him? Do you feel sorry for him suffering?" Zhan Chuyao didn't directly mention what Jing Haoge had done to Zhang Hanqi. Instead, she went to his side and gently massaged his shoulders. "For your highness's sake, your birthday is approaching soon. It wouldn't look good if Zhang Hanqi appeared bruised and swollen in front of everyone." Jing Haoge pursed his lips. He had sometimes been heavy-handed when sparring with Zhang Hanqi before. But this time, wasn't it because of her? But this reason was difficult to voice, so he relented. You're right. I'll be more careful in the future. However, when sparring, there are bound to be accidental injuries. As he spoke, he deliberately showed her his hand. Only then did Zheng Chuyao finally notice the cut on Jing Hao Ji's hand. She immediately played along, feigning concern. Oh dear, how could your highness be so careless? Although it's a small wound, I still feel distressed. She appeared worried, but inwardly she thought, if I had noticed this wound any later, it would probably have healed. However, her concerned words pleased Jing Haogu immensely. His mood instantly improved. He turned his head, feigning seriousness. It's just a small injury. My beloved concubine needn't worry. Having appeased the prince with sweet words, Zheng Chuyao seized the opportunity to request another small favor. Your Highness, you know I'm studying medicine, but I'm making slow progress without a teacher. Could I, perhaps, on your Highness's birthday, have the opportunity to consult with some of the imperial physicians? Jing Haogu looked into her sincere eyes and recalled the bone poison afflicting her. Even though he knew she wasn't being entirely truthful, he agreed to her request. Overjoyed that things were going so smoothly, Zheng Chuyao felt everything was moving in a positive direction. However, her happiness was short-lived. Upon returning to her courtyard, she heard Zhen Hanyan's sharp, caustic voice coming from the main hall. Zheng Chuyao steeled herself for a confrontation. Entering the room with a displeased expression, she asked, "What brings you to the prince's residence today, sister?" Zhen Hanyan, suppressing her anger, retorted, "I simply wanted to ask what birthday gift you prepared for his highness." Zheng Xiao's demeanor became extremely distant. That's none of your concern. Repeatedly rebuffed, Zheng Hanyan burned with fury. Don't forget, sister, even with his highness's protection, if you anger father, everything you have now will vanish. She spat out the threat, attempting to reduce Zheng Chuyao to her former, easily bullied self. Glancing into a room within the house, another wicked idea sprang to mind. Zheng Hanyan strode into the room and abruptly reached out. She snatched the rabbit lantern displayed in the room. It was the gift Jing Haogu had given Zheng Chuyao on Qixi Festival. In Zheng Hanyan's hands, it crumpled and fell to the floor, reduced to a ball of crushed paper. Seeing Zheng Chuyao's stunned expression, Zheng Hanyan gloated, as if finally releasing a pent-up breath of anger. She left with a final, shrill laugh. Nice lantern, sister, just not very sturdy. The beloved consort confined herself to her quarters, but the prince was amused, because the spiteful younger sister had broken the rabbit lantern he had gifted her. Zheng Chuyao sat alone in her room, feeling upset. Sensing an opportunity, her well-meaning but simple-minded cousin, Zhang Hanqi, stepped in. "Cousin, you should go see cousin-in-law. She's so upset she hasn't eaten anything all day." Jing Haogu, who had been calmly drinking tea, snapped at what's wrong with her. "Isn't it because of that Zheng Hanyan? She broke the rabbit lantern you gave cousin-in-law for Qixi Festival. She's heartbroken." Jing Haogu scoffed. "It's just a lantern. Is it really that big of a deal?" But then he reconsidered. "Still, it was a gift from me." As night deepened, Zheng Chuyao tossed and turned, unable to sleep. It was just an ordinary lantern, and he was just an ordinary person. Why was she so upset? Suddenly, a bright light pierced the darkness of her room. Confused, Zheng Chuyao got up. "It's so late. Has something happened?" She opened the door to a sight that bathed her in a golden glow. The courtyard was filled with glowing lanterns. Zhang Hanqi told her, "Cousin had these lanterns brought in especially. He also said the one you want most is with him. He wants you to go get it yourself." Zheng Chuyao lifted her skirts and ran through the residence, her earlier distress forgotten. Jing Haogu didn't know that what she truly desired most was a cure for her loneliness. But it wouldn't hurt to see what he had prepared. With light steps, Zheng Chuyao headed straight for Jing Haoji's study. The seemingly cold man's face held a rare hint of tenderness. In his hand, he held a rabbit lantern, identical to the one that had been destroyed. Zheng Chuyao's eyes lit up. Looking at Jing Haoji's carefully neutral expression, she felt a surge of emotion. This wasn't something the cold and indifferent prince from the original story would ever do. Struggling to contain her racing heart, she smiled and asked, "Your Highness, what is all this? Anyone would think the residence is selling lanterns." Jing Haogu gently brushed a strand of hair from her ear. This time, he didn't beat around the bush. "If my beloved consort doesn't like it, feel free to throw it away." Zheng Chuyao instinctively snatched the rabbit lantern from his hand and blurted out, "I like it. immediately realizing her slip. She blushed, which only made the prince's smile widen. However, a nagging worry began to grow in Zhang Chuyao's heart. He's suddenly being so nice to me. Could he be trying to trick me again? Little does she know, Jing Haoge is completely love-struck. Actually, as long as he's willing to tell me what's going on, forget just one Jin Hanyin who wronged Zhang Chuyao. Even if it's the mastermind behind the poisoning at the general's mansion, he could get away with it. Seeing him inexplicably spacing out, Zhang Chuyao softly called out, "Your Highness." Jing Haoge snapped back to his senses, looking startled. "Why, dear wife, do whatever you want. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you. Don't just mention a lantern, even if it's something else. As long as you're willing to tell me, I'll help you." The prince, who has never lifted a finger to do any manual labor, peeled shrimp for the first time, just to coax a sweet smile from his wife. Ever since the prince fell head over heels, he's become increasingly unrestrained. On his birthday, important guests arrived. Zhang Chuyao was busy attending to them outside, while Jing Haoge was inside playing chess with the Princess Royal. His mind, however, was completely focused on the person outside, worried that he might be given a hard time and then come running back to complain. His wife, meanwhile, was making a move in their chess game. Just as Jing Haoge was about to defeat the Princess Royal, a servant arrived with news from General Zhen's residence. Jing Haoge immediately stood up. "I have to go. There are many guests. Please take care of Chu Yao." And by the time the Princess Royal reacted, Jing Haoge had already walked out the door. She smiled faintly. This nephew's soul has long been captivated. Jing Haoge strode towards the main hall. The thought that the ancient poison in Zhang Chuyao's body was highly likely related to Zhang Tianhua filled him with rage. Zhang Tianhua, who had been deliberately brought to the main hall, clearly sensed the hostility. "Your Highness, you specifically requested my presence. What is the matter?" Jing Haoge suppressed his anger and replied calmly, "Nothing major. It's just that my aunt often asks why Chu Yao hasn't conceived after being in the manor for so long. The imperial physicians say he's fine, so I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you, General, if Chu Yao has any hidden ailments." Zhang Tianhua paused, but his expression remained natural, but he does not. Jing Haoge didn't press the matter. "Please forgive my presumption, General, and please don't mention this to Chu Yao, so as not to worry him." Both men maintained a facade of harmony, while inwardly scheming. Jing Haoge gestured, inviting the general to proceed to the banquet. As Zhang Tianhua turned, his expression suddenly turned cold. He knew Jing Haoge most likely suspected something about the ancient poison in Zhang Chuyao's body. "It seems I need to arrange for a new wife." The guests took their seats, and the banquet began. Suddenly, the sound of a zither filled the air. Jin Hanyin, dressed in elaborate attire, appeared before everyone. She bowed. "This humble servant, Zhan Hanyin, offers a dance to celebrate your highness's birthday." To the melody of Twilight Glow, the graceful young woman danced. Zhang Chuyao found himself captivated. Wow, she's actually quite talented. He subconsciously glanced at Jing Haoge beside him, thinking he must be mesmerized. Surprisingly, Jing Haoge paid no attention to the dance, instead focusing on peeling shrimp. He continued until he had filled a whole plate, which he then presented to Zhang Chuyao. "Eat." Zhang Chuyao was incredibly touched. Your Highness, do you not like shrimp?" No. He quickly and gratefully accepted the plate, beaming. "Thank you, Your Highness. I love them." Seeing this, Zhan Hanyin, who was dancing, was furious. After finishing her dance, she struggled to suppress her urge to kill Zhang Chuyao. She then asked loudly in front of everyone, "For Your Highness's birthday this month, my sister has prepared a mysterious gift for a long time. It's time to show it to everyone." Everyone's gaze immediately turned towards Zhang Chuyao. Jin Hanyin clearly wanted to humiliate him, but Zhang Chuyao, who was well prepared, wouldn't let her have her way. He calmly stood up and clapped his hands, signaling for someone to bring forth his gift. Two maids carried a large scroll and slowly unfurled it. A shimmering painting of a night scene was revealed. The painting depicted flower boats, lanterns, and fireworks, creating an immersive experience that I present this night on the river to celebrate Your Highness's birthday. May Your Highness be blessed with peace, joy, and success in all endeavors. Jing Haoge stood up excitedly, his joy overflowing. A smile spread across his face. He strode towards Zhang Chuyao. He beamed. "Why, dear wife, this is thoughtful. I love it."